Planning Commission meeting of April 12th to order. We do have a quorum present. I will turn it over to the Jesse Poole, the technical facilitator, who will make some preliminary comments on the process.
Right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. The chair, clerk, and technical facilitator are responsible for muting and unmuting committee members. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. During any roll call, all panelists will be unmuted briefly. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on the committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the board, please send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
The first order of business is public comment. Ms. Stoddard, is there anyone registered for public comment?
We don't have anyone registered for comment.
Okay, thank you. The next item is communications, disclosures, and recusals. Do any of the members have any disclosures or recusals? Raise your hand if so. Seeing none. The next item of business is the minutes of the March 22nd, 2021 regular meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve? Please raise your Commissioner Sondheim moves. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Rummel. Thank you. All those in favor, please. If we have unanimous consent, if not, raise your hand, please. I see no raised hands, so I'll assume unanimous consent. Thank you. The next item of business is schedule of meetings. Our regular meetings, our last meeting in April is April 26th, and our two regular meetings in May are May 10th and May 24th. We also have a special meeting on May 13th on the transportation demand management. The next item of business is new business, and it's Legistar 64589, accepting the report titled Comprehensive Plan 2021 Progress Update. Brian Grady will give a presentation on this item.
Chair Cantrell?
Yes.
If you'd like, we could go ahead and do the consent agenda and get that taken care of before this item.
Okay, that's great. Okay. The Plan Commission has customarily had items that staff believes the applicant the application has had sufficient review and warrants approval, and the applicant accepts all the conditions, and there are no individuals that have registered to speak in opposition of those items. On the consent agenda tonight, we have item number 8. Item number 9, 10, 13, 15, and 19, and we have 3 items of referral, items 16, 17, and 18. Do any of the commission members have any items they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? If so, raise your hand. Seeing none, I then will go through the consent agenda items. The first item on consent is item 8, Legislature 64604, creating section 28.022 to 00494 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 4702 Sheboygan Avenue in the 11th Aldermanic District from general development plan to specific implementation plan. Do we have any registrants for this item, Ms. Stoddard? No. The next item on consent will be treated together, items 9 and 10. Item 9 is Legislature 64607, creating sections 28.022 to 00495 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 330 to 342 East Lakeside Street in the 3rd Aldermanic District from Suburban Employment District to Parks and Recreation District. And the related item 10, Legislature 64094, 330 to 342 East Lakeside Street in the 3rd Aldermanic District, consideration of a conditional use in the Parks and Recreation District for a public service facility, and consideration of a conditional use in the Parks and Recreation District for a community center to allow an office building to be converted into municipal offices and a community center. Are there any registrants for this item?
Chair, we have Mike Sturm from the city's Parks Division supporting and available to answer questions. And I should mention, we do have several folks on item 8 supporting and willing to answer questions as well. But and that most belong to the applicant team.
Okay, thank you. The next item on consent is item number 13, Legislature 64363. 801 South Whitney Way, the 10th Aldermanic District, consideration of a conditional use in the Conservancy District for a water pumping station and reservoir, and consideration of a conditional use in the Conservancy District for an emergency electrical generator to allow the generator to be installed at the Madison Water Utility Unit Well 12. Any registrants on this item?
Yes, Pete Holmgren from the city's water utility is registered in support and available to answer questions.
Thank you. The next item on consent is item 15, Legislature 64366, 2918 Progress Road, consideration of a conditional use in the Industrial General District for an animal daycare and animal boarding facility in an existing building. Any registrants on this item, Ms. Stoddard?
2 registrants in support available to answer questions, Tim Wilhogans and Bill Montalbano.
Thank you. The next 3 items are for referral to the April 26th meeting at the request of the applicant. Item number 16, Legislature 64369, 3457 Milwaukee Street, consideration of a demolition permit to allow the demolition of a single-family residence to facilitate expansion of OB Sherry Park. Item number 17, also referral, is Legislature 64370, 3461 Milwaukee Street in the 15th Aldermanic District, consideration of a demolition permit to allow the demolition of a single-family residence to facilitate the expansion of OB Sherry Park. And the remaining item for referral is item number 18, Legislature 64371, 3465 Milwaukee Street, 15th Aldermanic District, consideration of a demolition permit to allow the demolition of a single-family residence to facilitate expansion of OB Sherry Park. And the last item on consent is item number 19, Register 63209, approving the certified survey map by Newcomb Construction Company of property owned by the County of Dane located at 5027 to 5101 Tradeswind Parkway in the 16th Aldermanic District. Are there any questions for the registrants by the Plan Commission? Raise your hand if so. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent and the referrals? Raise your hand, please. If we have a motion, okay. Motion by Commissioner Sondheim. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Rummel. All those in favor, I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand. Seeing no raised hands, the motion carries unanimously. Going back to the regular agenda, we have item number 2, Register 64589, the accepting the report titled Comprehensive Plan 2021 Progress Update. We will have a short presentation by Brian Grady. Brian, can you raise your hand so I can see where you're at? Okay. Oh, you moved on me. Okay. Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chair. I'm Brian Grady with the City of Madison's Planning Division, a principal planner in the Planning Division, here to present on our second edition of the Comp Plan Progress Update. And so I'll mention I'm presenting this, but obviously this is a group of a fairly large project each year, and I'm just one of many folks in the Planning Division that works on this, and one of many more folks in the city that works on this interagency effort. Let's go to the next slide here, if I can figure this out. So here is a copy of our comprehensive plan adopted in August of 2018. After about 18 months of community engagement, some pretty exhaustive community engagement. Our emphasis was to reach a large number of people for this project, but we had a particular emphasis on reaching folks that were less involved in city processes or city planning processes. And so we used mechanisms like an interactive website, we had community meetings. A unique thing we did here, kind of the spotlight for this project were the resident panels that were created to support this effort. These were groups of residents led by a facilitator that joined us throughout the 3-phase process to provide feedback. And again, we were reaching with those resident panels, again, just groups that are less likely to be involved in planning processes, especially over a longer term. And so this progress update is really completing a larger feedback loop for the whole plan. And so during the planning process, we would receive feedback from the community. After we receive that feedback, we would try our best to incorporate that feedback into the plan and try to show where feedback from residents was being used. Over time, the city takes action on implementation of this plan. The city, along with many other entities, are tasked with implementation. And so now with this progress update, we're reporting back on what we're doing. And so again, the primary audience are residents, but this is also helpful for city staff and different departments and budgeting and work planning purposes as well. Let me just stop 1 second here. Just want to make sure I lost the group here. So I want to make sure I was still there. There we go. And so here's the cover right here. And so we highlighted the State Street murals on the cover of the second edition. So this edition, 2021, covers the 2020 calendar year. So we're looking for that 2020 calendar year. What were the major milestones that we achieved in terms of the plan's recommendations, the milestones that advanced the plan recommendations during that 2020 calendar year? Our comprehensive plan is organized by these 6 elements. Our progress update follows that same organization. So we have these 6 elements. We're hopeful that for next year's edition, we'll be adding a 7th element, health and safety, which will hopefully better reflect more departments of the city that are maybe a little bit less represented in our current comprehensive plan. And so overall, our comp plan organization is we have these 6 elements. There's 2 goals for each element, and then there's strategies and actions. The actions get more detailed along the way. So again, hoping to have that 7th element next year. And so I'll just quickly touch on some of the highlights from each of these 6 elements that we have in this year's edition. And so for each section, we have a spotlight project and then several 8 to 10 other highlights. And then we also track each of the individual recommendations. So for here, for land use and transportation, we're spotlighting the Vision Zero project, which included many improvements across the city. Some other highlights that really touched on BRT. There were certainly some advancements made in BRT in 2020. Also, TDM was one project that I see you'll be discussing at a future meeting, TDM at the Madison Yards project. And so here is this next slide is an example of all the detailed actions. So for this one element, land use transportation, there are 9 total strategies, and there's about 2 to 3 detailed actions for each strategy. And so here I'm highlighting with these red arrows where there's been changes, a status change in each of these actions. So for each action, there's 172 of them in the plan. We have the lead agency in that status, and that's what we're kind of tracking here. So tracking the spotlights, the bigger projects, the other highlights, and then each of the individual actions. For neighborhoods and housing, we highlighted the city's support for providing shelter and support services throughout the pandemic. The pandemic was obviously, it comes out very clearly through this edition, again, as we highlight 2020 milestones. We also touch on some of the changes to zoning and development review requirements that's being considered right now by the city, which the Plan Commission obviously spent a bunch of time on. Also highlight some of the TIF usage to help assist with housing, both more of it and more price points for housing. For economy and opportunity, we highlighted the Small Business Equity and Recovery program. That's a kind of a multifaceted program to help support smaller businesses deal with the pandemic, whether it's lost income, providing protective equipment, or new ways of providing services. We also highlighted some of the TIF programs that we did to help support small businesses as we look to kind of diversify the TIF program. And the Street Read program, I'll mention, was a very big item as we try to facilitate more outdoor dining during the pandemic. And then in the culture and character section, again, the spotlight were the State Street murals. It's been a lot of discussion about that artistic response to the situation on State Street. We also highlighted again just some of the many different ways that we engage the community through the arts or different programs. And then in Green Resilient, one of the great photos of this edition is the prescribed grazing and the picture of the goats that were used because they're so good at trimming back invasives and getting into tight places, basically. Kind of a more sustainable way of handling invasive species. Also highlighting the city's increased stormwater management requirements that went into effect, some of the solar improvements, and electrical vehicle charging facility requirements, and also the bird-friendly glass was also we also highlighted that. And then our last section, which is effective government, which is encompassing more departments, kind of how we work, how we respond to the community needs. We highlighted the COVID-19 response, which really covered all different departments from public health, Madison and Dane County, to making sure folks can vote safely during this last year, modifying city facilities for social distancing, et cetera. And then just overall highlighted some of the smaller things that we're doing to help increase access to government amongst residents and especially underrepresented groups as we go forward and try to improve in that area. And so that's a real brief summary of what we've put together here. I think with that, I will turn it back to the commission for any questions or comments you might have. And if you have any suggestions even for how we present this in future years, how it might be helpful, that would be appreciated too, as we'll be back each spring or so to present on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Grady. Do we have any questions for Mr. Grady? Yes, Commissioner Rummel.
Thank you, Chair Central. Thanks for the good report. It's always interesting to see a capsule of what we've done. And my question isn't really about the specifics for 2020, but maybe a more general question about when do we update the comprehensive plan? I know you mentioned adding a new element, but did that change the comprehensive plan? And I guess I've heard a number of situations where if things don't fit the comprehensive plan and we wait till mid-cycle to change. And I'm wondering if staff has talked at all about any other approaches than that one.
Mr. Grady? Okay, sorry. Yes, Mr. Grady.
Sorry, I should not have unmuted myself or muted myself. Yes, and so on the question of the health and safety element, adding the seventh element that was not planned, and so our thought is that the content in that section, which will include likely 2 goals, some strategies, and some detailed actions like the other sections, we will look to add that on there, kind of basically bolt on that new section under our current comprehensive plan. We haven't gotten into the details of what that process will look like to add that, but I think it'll be more of an internal process to add that, but we'll try to use feedback we receive through the comprehensive plan process and also other more recent city processes. We'll look to add that, and that will be, it probably will not have, changes to like the general future land use map or have land use impacts, but there will be recommendations that will, again, move the city forward in certain areas. In terms of the other kind of updates to the comprehensive plan, yes, how we've done it in the past, and we have kind of a short history with our comprehensive plan, with our first one adopted in 2006, and this 2018 one being the update to that. What we did back in 2006 is after about 5 years, we did kind of a mid-decade update to the generalized feature land use map. And so we did take in proposals from property owners or developers or any group, any constituency, where they would suggest changes to the generalized feature land use map. We took those proposals in, we vetted them amongst staff. I'm sure amongst the Plan Commission. That was a few years ago. I don't remember the details, but we vetted those and then also made other changes to, for example, include land use changes that came about from our more recent neighborhood plans that have been adopted. So we're still planning to do that. I think your question, Alder Rummel, is a good question, and one that staff, we should probably start to outline some ideas for how, again, we would add that seventh element, how we would update the GFLU map, and how we might make other changes to it. I think our overall preference is to not make too many changes because it is a pretty large document, and it can take some time to do that. But staff should outline that, and I guess we can bring it back to the Plan Commission at some point. I'll mention too that when we came to the Plan Commission, was it back in December regarding the idea of possibly going to the district plans where we do plans for chunks of the city that could replace that generalized feature land use map, where at that point, rather than doing one big update to the GFLU map, we're actually making incremental updates through each of those district plans, and that would take place over that 10-year cycle. I'll also mention, and this is a big topic, our comprehensive plan has been used. We see it more of like a hybrid comprehensive plan and strategic plan, and so we could, as a city, we could even decide to separate these two things in these two processes. You could have kind of a land use side of things, and you could have more of a strategic plan side of things, more the recommendations. There could be different routes, but overall, I think the PC, amongst the planning division, we've just had some initial conversations, and I think we could put some thoughts together and again bounce them off the plan commission and see what folks' reaction is.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Rummel? No, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Grady? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the update?
Chair Cantrell, we do have one registrant wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you.
Peggy Rosen of Vilas Avenue, neither supporting nor opposing, and wishing to speak.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Rosen, and I'm a volunteer for 350 Madison's Community Climate Solutions team. Tonight, however, I'm speaking for myself and not the organization, but through volunteering with 350 Madison, I've gained a lot of insight into the successes, challenges, and barriers to mitigating carbon dioxide in Madison's built environment. And also by attending the Plan Commission meetings, which I do, I know that your job is formidable and that you provide an immense service to the community, and I thank you. And I know that tonight you're likely to approve the 2021 progress update on the City of Madison's comprehensive plan. And I understand that it's a broad-based plan and it's a declaration of the city's values and desires and future. And I wholeheartedly agree with the vision that you have for Madison's future and support the goals and strategies and actions to accomplishing this. So bravo for the plan. Thank you, Brian and others. But my questions to you are, how are we measuring the progress towards city's goals? And how are we communicating this progress to citizens? And because of my interest in the built environment, I know that that the major contributor to CO2 levels in Madison is the built environment, and that the Madison Sustainability Plan reported this fact and called for metrics to be created and follow up on the plans. And this is a decade-old plan, and I don't know and cannot find data related to the progress. And another excellent plan that Madison has is 100% Renewable Madison, which set out suggested actions to accelerate Madison reaching its goals, and what is the progress toward achieving these actions. So as I looked at the 2021 comprehensive progress update, which, as you know, tracks the implementation status of each of the plan's actions, actions are measured by like not started, ongoing, or in progress, and it's really difficult to interpret. And I'm asking if there is an online portal giving more specific information about the progress for each action, and where is the data upon which the status of actions is determined. So in close, just as an interested citizen, I really applaud Madison for its visioning. However, I know that according to the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, Madison ranked 64th out of 100 U.S. cities on the 2020 Clean Energy Scorecard. So another question is Madison really below average, or is it just that we're not tracking the progress that we're making in a clear way? So the comprehensive plan progress update, from my naive perspective, needs to be more transparent and data-driven measurements toward the city goals. And additionally, I think citizens need a better...
Ms. Rosen, your time limit is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one sentence.
Thank you. Can staff respond to Ms. Rosen's question?
Yeah, I think we have not got to the point of having like detailed metrics to measure progress in terms of the comprehensive plan or other plans or initiatives across the city. We have not got there for this project. We may get there eventually, but I would just say that what we've put together is a fair amount of work. And I guess our best foot forward, I guess, in terms of providing some information. I think, if the commenter wants to contact me, they certainly could, and I can try to connect them with more information regarding the 2011 sustainability plan. The Single Master Committee is just now working on an update to that plan, and that work could potentially include some metrics to help measure progress from that sustainability plan or measure progress in terms of different sustainability initiatives. But the measurement is a lot of work. The city has put some infrastructure in place to try to help measure some more internal things through Results Madison, and then also maybe more community-wide measures, but we just have not got there yet. But again, if you want to contact me, I can provide more of the information that kind of went into what guided what's in this progress update. Yeah, I appreciate the question and the feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Grady. Do we have a motion to accept the progress report update? Raise your hand if a motion is made by Commissioner Sondheim. Do we have a second? Commissioner Haginaw has seconded the motion. Any discussion? If I assume unanimous consent, unless I see a raised hand. Seeing no raised hand, yes, Commissioner, Ms. Stoddard. Oh. I just muted you.
Well, I think Alder Heck does have a hand raised.
Okay, Alder Heck.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thanks. I don't have a question per se related to the motion, but I just wanted a clarification. Given that we don't have a large number of commissioners here this evening, I just wanted to make sure we all understood how many votes it would take to pass a motion this evening.
We'll need 5 votes unless Ms. Stoddard corrects me. Is that correct? Do we need 5 votes, Ms. Stoddard?
I'm recounting now. I believe we have 7 in attendance, so we would need 4 votes to pass a motion.
Okay.
All right, that's all I needed. Thank you.
No, wait. Okay, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
That includes the chair, correct?
It does include the chair. Yep.
All right, so 4 votes. I anticipate this will pass. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Alder Heck. Any other comments? If I don't see a raised hand, I'll assume unanimous consent. Seeing no raised hands, a motion carries. Moving on to the next item, we have 3 tax increment district amendments. Item number 3 is Registrar 64796, approving the amendment to the project plan for tax increment district 39, that's Stoughton Road. Do we need to take these one at a time, Ms. Stoddard? I'm assuming we do.
I believe that would be best. And Dan Rolfs from the city's Economic Development Division is here to address questions on either.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing on this item. Do the commission members have any questions on this matter? Are there any registrants on this item, Ms. Stoddard?
No registrants on items 3, 4, or 5.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve item number 3? Can I raise Commissioner Sondheim moves to approve item number 3. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Ellinger. I'll assume Do we have any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand. Seeing no raised hands, the motion carries. The next item is item number 4, Legistar 64794, approving the amendment to Progress Plan TIF Increment District 41, the University Whitney Way TIF District. Do we have a motion to approve this item? Do we have any questions about this item by any commission members? Seeing none. Again, I'm looking for a motion. Motion by Commissioner Sondheim. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Leamer. I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand. Seeing no raised hands, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 5 is Legistar 64795, is approving an amendment to project plan for Tax Increment District 42, Wingra, in the city of Madison. Do we have a motion on this item or any questions? Looking for a motion. Motion by Commissioner Sondheim. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Leamer. Yes, Commissioner Sondheim, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Thanks. More than just a comment, actually, regarding this, and then ties into the comprehensive plan update. I just wanted to applaud the city TIF staff for just the whole strategy of the donor TIDs and what you're doing in South Madison with the Urban League and land banking. I think it's a very creative strategy.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on this item. I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand. Seeing no raised hands, the motion carries unanimously. The next item of business are 2 related items. Items number 6, and we'll treat them together in one public hearing. Item number 6 is Legistar 60914, creating Section 28022 to 00454, the Madison General Ordinances, to change the zoning of property located at 4,000 to 41,050 Packers Avenue and 4201 North Sherman Avenue, from temporary agricultural district to suburban residential consistent district, R2 district, and temporary agriculture to traditional residential consistent 3 district, and temporary agricultural district to transitional residential varied 2 district, and temporary agricultural district to transitional residential urban 1 district, and lastly, temporary agricultural district to commercial corridor transitional district. And the related item is item number 7, Legistar 60683, approving the preliminary plat of the Remish Forum development on property addressed at 4,000 to 4150 Packers Avenue and 4201 North Sherman Avenue in the 12th Aldermanic District. Do we have a presentation on this item? Yes, Mr. Punt.
Thank you, Chair Cantrell. So before the commission tonight is these two related items, the rezoning of the Ramish Farm between Packers Avenue and Sherman Avenue from temporary A to a variety of residential and commercial and mixed-use districts, and the approval of a preliminary plat to create 124 single-family lots and 7 lots for future multifamily or mixed-use development. The staff has determined that for the most part, the Plan Commission can find that the land use plan and plat as outlined can be found to be consistent with the adopted plans. However, staff does want to bring to your attention the addendum to the original staff report that was sent out on Friday. There's 2 important portions of that. The first regards the revised applicant. This application was originally submitted in May of 2020. It did go through a cycle of several referrals before coming to the Plan Commission on this date. During that time, the future owner and developer did change. The current property representative who has an accepted offer to purchase is now Green Street Development, and Green Street has opted to go forward with the existing application with the plat and the zoning as seen in the land use application. Staff also notes that there was a change to one of the Parks Division recommended conditions of approval. That would be condition 68 regarding the parkland dedication. The Parks Division has also included a condition of approval that states that the applicant is encouraged to create an outlot to dedicate to the Parks Division across portions of lot 119 and lots 122 and 131. Those lots are located along the southern boundary of the parcel at the far western end. They border Lakeview Elementary School. Lakeview Elementary School has a school forest on the property. When the parcel to the immediately to the east of the school parcel and south of the Ramish Farm developed, a portion of that was actually obtained by MMSD to preserve some of that school forest. There is an existing stand of trees along the south property line west of Elliott Lane and adjacent and contiguous to the school forest. The Parks Division, the school district, and the area alderperson have expressed interest in preserving those trees, and that is where that new recommended condition of approval has come from. Additionally, staff wants to draw attention to the document that was also provided on Friday that includes a grading plan for the entire site, as well as a proposed tree protection plan showing a no grading easement along, I believe, the southernmost 30 feet along that tree line, as well as a landscaping easement. Staff does note that this document was not part of the original staff review, and to include this in the approval, if the Plan Commission does opt to approve the plat and rezoning, there should be a condition stating that this or something like it be included in that approval with staff verification. As always, I will be here to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Pont. I will open the public hearing. Ms. Stoddard, can you call the first registrant?
Certainly. So commissioners will have 2 folks involved with the applicant group, and then to be followed by 5 folks who have a presentation pulled together, who are all 5 in opposition to the proposal. And so we'll start with those folks. First, the applicant group, Joel Oliver of 8451 Maryland Street in Clayton, Missouri, representing Green Street Development. And Joel will be followed by Ryan Quam of McFarland, also part of the applicant team.
Ms. Stoddard, do they each have 3 minutes?
Yes, each individual will have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can we have the first speaker, please?
Hello, my name is Joel Oliver. I'm the Managing Director of Development for Green Street Real Estate out of St. Louis. We're extremely excited to be here tonight. We first looked at this site back in July of 2019. We've been working on a mixed-use project over in Sheboygan for the last 3 years, which is going really well. So Wisconsin has a lot of similarities to Missouri, and we've really enjoyed developing in the state. We are a fully integrated development firm, so we develop multifamily, commercial, office, industrial, entertainment, hotels. We do have our own architecture firm, construction firm, and are really excited to be having the opportunity to work on this project. We did get site control relatively recently, even though we've been looking at it for a while. So, we've invested a lot of effort to get up to speed to where we are today. We were very happy to be able to join the last neighborhood meeting and felt that was a really productive conversation with the folks in the neighborhood who have very graciously volunteered a lot of time to this project. So we always think that's great when we see that. And we really appreciate the effort that the planning staff and the team to date have put into this. So I just wanted to introduce us. All the members of our team are on the call watching, and we're excited to move this forward with the city.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Can we have the next registrant, please?
Yes, it's again Ryan Quam of Sigilco Road in McFarland.
Yeah, this is Ryan Quam with Quam Engineering. Again, appreciate the time to be here. So Quam Engineering, we provided the design and the plat services to get to this point. My 3 minutes, I'd like to talk about the unique aspects of the site, working with city staff, and some of the work we've done with the neighborhood group, and particularly the neighborhood forester. As far as unique aspects of the site go, this is an infill development. There's many, as hopefully everybody can see the grading plan, there's many dead-end streets that connect to this site, 2 on the south side and 3 on the north side, as well as 2 on the west side. So obviously we needed to connect into those streets to complete this infill development. The contours in the site may show that there's a lot of vertical relief. So there's some grading challenges. For instance, from Elliott Lane at the south, I guess east of the school, traveling north and then west to Sherman Avenue, there's 38 feet of fall. Actually going west to Sherman Avenue, there's 38 feet of fall going down Lakeview Avenue there. And just in general, there's a lot of vertical, which is great for single family homes, a lot of the lower level walkouts, partial exposures. Also great for multifamily as far as kind of blending those grade changes into the site. Not as good for parkland, particularly active parkland, which requires like a 2% slope. There's not a lot of 2% slopes on this site. So that's the second design constraint. The third one is the wetland. There's an existing wetland on the west portion of the site, which requires us to have some setback buffers and also some stormwater management issues, which we're prepared to address, and this plan does address. As far as working with city staff, again, we appreciate all the input we have received from city staff along the way. We're prepared to address the staff comments that came out in that October memo, and I'm looking forward to doing that. As the report indicates, this is in compliance with the plans, and the main feedback we received from city staff was really just north to south connections to make sure there's contiguous streets, and then east to west connections from Sherman Avenue to Packers. They wanted to have contiguous streets. Stormwater is going to be tricky, but we have a solution for the stormwater. Again, appreciate the city staff input to this point. As far as working with the neighborhood, and I just like to speak to the tree protection plan that Mr. Punt mentioned. I did contact the forester that the neighborhood group is working with, and we had a conversation very recently. We obviously made a site visit, and there's some 90-year-old oak trees right along the south property line.
I'm sorry, Mr. Quam, your time limit is up. Can we have the next speaker, please?
Yes, the next speaker is Michelle Ellinger of Whitman Lane in Madison, opposed and representing the Ramish Farm Work Group of the Northside Planning Council, to be followed by Marcia Cannon.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. I'm Michelle Ellinger. I'm a member of the Ramish Farm Work Group of the Northside Planning Council. I'm a parent of 3 children who've all attended Lakeview Elementary School. At Lakeview, I've served in various volunteer capacities, PTA vice president for 2 years on the Green Team, which oversees the school forest and gardens. The Northside's been a home for me for close to 16 years. I previously owned a home directly west of the Ramish Farm on North Sherman Avenue and witnessed many sunrises through my front window, and now live directly south of it within feet on Whitman Lane. The Ramish Farm Work Group officially formed under the Northside Planning Council earlier this year, after a group of us, Northside residents, Lakeview parents and educators, Northside alders, had already been meeting since last summer. Marty Rifkin hired Quam Engineering to design this current plat. Alder Abbas had organized tour neighborhood meetings regarding this plat last March. Mr. Rifkin listened to our concerns, and he actually met with a small group of us several times. He came to walk the school forest with our work group. On April 1st of this year, we had our final meeting with Mr. Rifkin when we learned of the new owners and development and planning team to have a conversation about possible revisions to the plat based on our work and our input. At this meeting, the work group expressed our concerns with the current plat design, and at that time, we learned that this plat would not be changed at all. It was the exact same plat. So here we are. The work group has worked extensively to research options, believing we may assist Mr. Rifkin with his changing of this plat to preserving those oak trees that were spoken about just a minute ago, fit closer to the 2009 neighborhood plan, and planning for the possibility of the F-35 risk and liability that may be to come. Much like groups that came before us, our group's collective minds have worked tirelessly for months. We've met with officials for the Parks Department, DNR, countless county and city officials. We've done this work on a volunteer basis. And after more than a year with full knowledge of this work and these issues, this plan remains unchanged. This evening, we asked the Plan Commission to listen as we say we oppose this current plat for many environmental and equity reasons, not just because we don't want development on our neighboring land. Our small group of volunteers have researched numerous concerns, and it's clear that the proponents have not sufficiently considered the science. We ask that this tract not be rezoned tonight, that the development team be directed to revise their plan so that it can take into account what we presented to them before they apply for your approval. This project needs to go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you call the next speaker, registrant?
Yes, Marcia Cannon of North Sherman Avenue, opposed, wishing to speak, to be followed by Mark Voss.
Marcia, you may have to press *6 on your phone.
I did unmute. I had trouble logging on, by the way. It wanted a password, so it was very difficult. Thank you, though. My name is Marcia Cannon. I belong to the Ramish Farm Work Group. as Michelle noted. I live on Cherokee Circle near the Ramish Farm, and I oppose the proposed development because it is not in accord with adopted plans. The Common Council adopted the Northport Warner Park Sherman Neighborhood Plan in 2009. A 23-member volunteer steering committee worked for 18 months, met 37 times, and met with city staff from numerous departments to develop the plan. The 2018 City of Madison Imagine Madison Comprehensive Plan incorporates the 2009 plan. It says substantial weight should be given to sub-area plans with specific reference to the 2009 plan. I'm disappointed with the developer's plat. They have chosen some concepts from the neighborhood plan, but they left out many others, especially those in concept B, that's on the right. For example, there's no city park in the new plat. There are no acreage for urban agriculture. It's missing 4 units of co-housing and 18 units of a cottage green. There are no large apartment buildings in the 2009 plan, yet they're proposing 6 4-story buildings with 321 rental units. The 2009 plan recommends 128 housing units in smaller, multifamily, 2 to 4 unit buildings, yet the developers proposed fewer than half as many, just 58. The developers boast that their plan has about 8 acres of open space, but that's only what's required by law to protect the ephemeral wetland on the west and to capture runoff on the northeast. Altogether, they want to build nearly 500 dwelling units, at least 200 more than the plan recommends. They also want 3 times the recommended commercial space. Ramish Farm development must respect the neighborhood plan. This proposal needs to go back to the drawing board. Furthermore, I got a message from Alder Rebecca Kemble, who could not come to the meeting, and she encouraged me to let you know that she would wholeheartedly support what our group is presenting. Additionally, Alders Foster, Abbas, and I have been discussing the need to develop standards around noise pollution, given that the U.S. Air Force has drawn a line on the map that cuts through the north and east side that indicates that land within a certain noise counter is not suitable for residential use. We know from experience of other cities that have hosted F-35s that their area within the counters of maps drawn from the noise models before the planes arrive is greatly expanded once the planes get there, and there's no real monitoring data. Although currently we have no standard for this, I urge you to reject the rezoning and the plat on which it is based until we have developed standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have the next registrant, please?
Yes, Mark Voss of Mayfield Lane, representing the Ramish Farm Volunteer Working Group of the Northside Planning Council, to be followed by James Kirsten.
Hello, I'm Mark Voss. I live at 1622 Mayfield Lane, about a block from the Ramish property. I've lived here since 2001. I'm a member of the Ramish Farm Working Group, a subgroup of the Northside Planning Council. I'd like to address the uncertainty of the impact of the noise pollution of the F-35 military aircraft slated to be installed at the Dane County Airport in 2023. On the proposed development, in preparation for my address to the Plan Commission, I reached out to Paul Connor, Director of Planning and Zoning in South Burlington, Vermont, to understand the impact the installation of F-35s had on that community in September of 2019. He stated that in our area, there has been a transition in form of mitigation being sought from the FAA. In the past, the plan called for noise mitigation through the voluntary acquisition and removal of homes within the noise affected area. Within a neighborhood located immediately adjacent to the airport, as this one would be, this resulted in the removal of 200 homes. I wonder what the mitigation plan is for the neighborhoods adjacent to the Dane County Airport once the F-35s are installed, since to my knowledge, there is no adopted mitigation plan in place. Mr. Connor, the South Burlington planner, further stated to me that in more recent years, changed flight patterns driven largely by operational and aircraft on the military side of this dual-use airport resulted in a larger area being within the noise compatibility program's eligibility. This uncertainty of a likely changing noise pollution footprint suggests a further exploration and adoption of a mitigation plan before more housing is built adjacent to our airport. I urge the Plan Commission to speak with planners in other municipalities affected by F-35 noise pollution before approving zoning changes to allow residential development in the Ramish Farm site, a property clearly within the noise pollution footprint of the F-35s. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have the next registrant, please?
James Kirsten of Autumn Leaf Lane. Opposed, wishing to speak, to be followed by Edward Teddy Call.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is James Kirsten. I am a member of the Ramish Farm Work Group of the Northside Planning Council. I teach at Lakeview Elementary. I oppose this plan in its current form and rezoning. For environmental equity, we must save the Lakeview School Forest. At Lakeview, 79% of our students are low income, and most live in a small apartments on Highway 113 Northport Drive. 76% of our students are students of color. Lakeview is one of only 3 elementary schools in the nation to have a Hmong bilingual program. Lakeview is one of only 4 schools in Madison that operate as a community school due to its high need and community partnership. Only 3 of the state's 412 school forests are in Madison. We are one of them. Our school forest is an outdoor classroom tied to a state-approved educational plan providing environmental education, health, and wellness, and our core academic curriculum. When kindergartners returned last month, the pandemic forced schools to think outside of the brick walls. With social distancing key to reopening schools, Lakeview utilized the outdoor classroom and school forest for 3 recess areas plus classroom learning. On any given day, more than half of our students will walk through and learn in our school forest. The school forest is predominantly red and white oaks. Oaks are sensitive to disturbances caused by grading, compaction, and development. Roots can extend 3 to 7 times the canopy of oak trees, and some of our oak trees are over 70 feet tall, with many along the lot line. The oaks provide wildlife habitat, outdoor learning, and environmental benefits to our climate, to our air, and to our students. We must save the Lakeview School Forest. Beyond its many attributes, it provides environmental access for our Northside children, and at Lakeview, opportunities for our students of color. We talk about racial justice and equity these days. Here's an opportunity to show that we mean it. We must do better, be better than our forefathers, and consider how our actions today impact the children of the present and future. If this development is approved in its current form, it could destroy half of the oak trees. Trees and children don't care or understand property lines and lot lines. They only know what they can see, feel, touch, and hear. We must save the Lakeview School Forest.
Thank you. Can you call?
Yeah, Teddy Call, and then that will round out this group of registrants, and Teddy Call will be followed then by Paul Noldner.
Thank you. Teddy Call, you're up for it.
You may have a prompt asking to unmute.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me all right now? Okay. My name is Teddy Call. I live on Randy Lane, about 5 blocks away from the Ramish Farm. I'm a member of the Ramish Farm Work Group of the Northside Planning Council. I'll conclude by sharing information about oak tree root systems, and will explain how the proposed zoning plan of the Ramish Farm property could unintentionally kill the historic oak trees that grow along the fence line of the Lakeview School Forest adjoining the Ramish Farm. All trees are sensitive to root disturbance. Many trees' roots will extend 2 to 3 times the distance of the drip line. Oak trees' root systems, however, can spread 3 to 7 times the diameter of the tree's crown or drip line. Also important to understanding oak tree root systems is knowing that if two or more oak trees of the same species are growing near each other, they can share a common root system by the process of grafting, thus making a stand of oak trees vulnerable even if only one tree's roots are fatally compromised. I visited the Lakeview School Forest and counted the number of mature oak trees along the property line of the Ramish Farm. There are 32 mature oak trees in the Lakeview School Forest that are within 25 feet of the Ramish Farm property line. Specifically, these trees are on the Lakeview side of the fence. Of these 32 trees, 22 of them are within 13 feet of the property line. There are also 7 mature oak trees within a few feet of the fence line that are on the Ramish Farm property. To explain the historical value of these trees, I also took measurements to estimate their age. I found that most of these historic trees measure over 6 feet in trunk circumference, but some measured over 8 feet around. An oak tree with a trunk measuring 6 feet around is estimated to be nearly 115 years old, and an oak tree measuring 8 feet around is estimated to be 150 years old. I also took canopy measurements of a couple sample oak trees in the school forest. A tree with a 6-foot circumference had an overhead canopy or crown diameter of about 50 feet. An oak tree with 8.5 feet around had an overhead canopy diameter of about 70 feet. Since oak trees are known to spread 3 to 7 times the diameter of the tree's crown, this means that the minimum buffer zone needed between the trees and any type of major disturbance, construction, or heavy machinery in order to protect these historic trees would be about 150 feet to 350 feet to protect the trees, the trunks that are 6 feet circumference, which is the majority of the oak trees on the property. And a minimum buffer area needed to protect the oak trees with trunks of 8 feet wide would be approximately 210 to 500 feet, not 30 feet. Based on the information presented tonight, I hope the Planning Commission will agree that the intended zoning plan dismisses the neighborhood plan that was approved by Common Council in 2009, does not take into consideration the noise generated from F-35s flying overhead, and the intended zoning plan does not do nearly enough to protect the root systems of these 100-plus-year-old oak trees. Please vote no to the proposed development plan so that a development plan in accordance with the 2009 neighborhood plan may be implemented instead. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we call the next registrant?
Next registrant is Paul Noldner of Kensington in Maple Bluff, opposed, to be followed by Christine Omen Call.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
There is no person. Paul is not in attendance.
Okay, next registrant is Christine Omen Call of Randy Lane in Madison. Opposed. Michelle speak.
Michelle is in attendance.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Please proceed.
Yes, my name is Christine Omen Call. I've been a Madison resident my whole life, and my husband and I live about 5 blocks away from Lakeview Elementary School. I oppose the current Ramish Farm development plan. I believe the information presented by the Ramish Farm Group aligns with the following city plans, where the current proposed development does not. The Northport Warner Park Sherman Neighborhood Plan, the City of Madison Comprehensive Plan, the Connecting Children to Nature Plan, and the City of Madison Park and Open Space Plan. I'd like to take a moment to read an equity statement on page 27 of the Park and Open Space Plan. Madison Parks shall promote equity, contribute to mental, physical, and environmental health, and be sustainable and adaptable in the light of a variety of new challenges. Viewing proposed and future policies and practices through these lenses requires city parks stakeholders to ask how the policies impact these goals. While the answers may not always be obvious or be fully agreed to, asking the question is essential to informing the dialogue and decision-making in the context of limited resources and competing priorities. These 4 lenses used as a frame to review and guide all park and open space planning assist the division in achieving its vision of providing residents access to an exceptional park system. So with that, I ask that you use these lenses and the 4 current City of Madison plans to make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we call the next speaker?
Yes, next registrant is Ellen Bernards of Mayfield Lane, opposed wishing to speak, to be followed by Cassandra Meekselsberger.
You have 3 minutes.
There are no people in attendance by that name, by those names.
Okay, no Ellen Bernards or Cassandra Meekselsberger. Next registrant is Joan Bell Call of Ash Lane, opposed and representing the Ramish Farm Working Group and the Environmental Nature Group within the Next Door Neighborhood website.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Chair, I have them down as not wishing to speak. Available.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's right.
So I think we're done with people wishing to speak.
And I will move on then to those that are registered under item 7, since we're taking these together. Let me scroll through. The next registrant then is Jenny Quinn of Lakeview Avenue, opposed and wishing to speak. And unless Ellen Bernards has returned, that would be our last speaker.
Right. This is Jenny Quinn. And I just want to let you know that I live on Lakeview Avenue. It's actually one of the streets that's proposed to be extended through to Packers. And I just think that's a horrible idea, only because we have a Lakeview Hill and they'll come down Lakeview, down into, and just keep going. These people race down the street to begin with. I just want to let you know I've been a member of the North Side since 1998. I have a daughter and my family, my husband and I all live here. My daughter's gone to school through here. And we bought our house over here due to the community and the social justice. It's very strong in community, environmental issues, and social justice. And if you want to ask U.S. Cellular, they'll tell you why. We defeated a huge cell tower to be put up on Wheeler Road. I've been listening to these meetings since March of 2020, and numerous times that the developer's been asked to change. Well, at the time when it was Marty, has been asked to change plans. They always came back to us with the same plan. I just don't think they're listening to the neighborhood, and quite frankly, they don't really care. They just want to sell it and see the money. The few issues with all of this: have the developers, the planners, and the decision makers in Madison walk these incredible 63 acres of land? Have you seen that it has its own ecosystem? Have you seen its huge oak trees? Have you seen how the school forest is along the landline, serves as an outdoor classroom? School forest needs to be expanded. It serves as one of Madison's community schools. Lakeview serves as one of Madison's community schools due to many families that live in the area are low income. And low income. Have you been to this school? Have you seen it used as a classroom? Not providing more land and not saving the school forest is an environmental and social justice issue due to the amount of people of color and other races living in this community. Next comes the traffic issue. How will this traffic be handled? Can't expand Sherman or CV. Right now, Sherman and North Sherman have so much traffic. With the new development of Hartmeyer, it will bring more. There's very little mass transit on the north side. So everyone that moves into these developments will need their cars and other modes of transportation. What is the traffic plan? Right now, we have as far as first responders, we have one fire truck, one ambulance, and maybe 4 officers on. They're stretched thin to begin with. Are we going to put more first responders on so they can get to calls in time? The contaminated land, everything that's feeding into Starkweather Creek coming from this new development, and then just the development area that's highly affected by the F-35s. And F-35s are 4 times louder than the F-16s. It's just irresponsible to develop this land. The developers don't care. I feel like the city of Madison is being more reactive than proactive in this situation.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you for your comments.
Well, you want?
Can we call the next registrant, please?
Yes, we have no more speakers, but I'll read off a list of registrants who are here and available to answer questions. Cassandra Meekselsberger of Mayfield Lane, opposed. Joan Bell Call of Esh Lane, opposed. Diana Benitez of Nevada Road, opposed. Jeannie Castilleja of Wheeler Road, opposed. Jamie Kanaudke of Heath Avenue, opposed. Axel Lorenzen of Harbert Drive, opposed. Jackie Hirschberger of Northland Drive, opposed. Sue Gilbertson of Burning Wood Way, opposed. Rita Jones of North Sherman Avenue, opposed. Marty Rifkin of Yosemite Trail in support. And then for item 7, one moment, Rachel Dieterting of Tennyson Lane, opposed. Les Hoffman of Comanche Glen, opposed. Lauren Asili Ziegler of Pond Street, opposed. Eric Ziegler of Pond Street, opposed. And I think the other registrants are here not wishing to speak.
Thank you, Heather. Do we have any questions for the registrants by the commission? Yes, Commissioner Rummel.
Thank you, Chair. I want to at least ask a question of someone from the working group as they heard that in the presentation from Mr. Punt about the new condition number 69, and if their group had looked at that and had any comments to make. And I don't know if that would be Michelle or Marcia or Mark or any of the others who spoke, or Ed or Teddy, but one of those if they could step up and answer.
Okay, do we have anyone from the working group that would like to answer Commissioner Rummel's question? Let's see.
It looks like Michelle Ellinger has raised a hand.
Okay. Michelle, can you respond, please? Can you unmute Michelle?
I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a challenge there, unmuting again. Thank you so much for that question, Alder Rummel. We did see that come through. To us, at this point, it isn't enough. That needs to happen before this is approved. Thank you for asking.
So just to follow up, would you just not want to see any development on those lower lots, 119 and the other numbers, I of course didn't write down, but through 131?
Sure. There's 12 lots that are affected that are directly north of the lot line from Lakeview Elementary School Forest. And as Teddy had mentioned, what is being proposed as being sufficient space it just isn't. It really does run the risk, and those trees are too important. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Go ahead.
And other people might want to ask the working group, but then I would ask a similar question to the applicant, but I can wait if others have questions.
Do any of the other commission members have questions? Yes, Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I actually have a very similar question, and I think it was Teddy that talked so much about the trees. And if he's still on, I'd like to hear his version of that, the answer to Alder Rummel's question. Given that the development team has agreed, I think, to this new condition, can you describe why you think that's not sufficient, which is what I assume your group is claiming?
Yes, Alder Heck, this is Teddy. Thanks for the question. So yes, I mean, essentially like the 30-foot buffer, I think is what is partially what you're referring to, along with the discussion about there being a park. Basically, in all of the findings, when I was looking through various materials, trying to find out just to kind of explain the root system of oak trees. As I mentioned, many trees' roots are 2 to 3 times the distance of the drip line. and oak trees can spread 3 to 7 times the diameter of the tree's crown or the strip line. So I mean, so a 30-foot buffer is still at least, at the very least, I mean, it's like a 75 to 100 feet short of what it needs to be. I mean, it's like a tree with a diameter of 6 feet, for instance, means that like the tree's root system is extending 150 to 350 feet, 150 feet being the minimum. So when we were asking for a 100-foot buffer, and 30 feet was what was proposed back to us, that simply isn't enough.
So that was 30 feet from the property line. Is that correct?
Correct.
From what you understand?
That's my understanding.
Okay. And you were mentioning in your testimony, your comments, that there were trees on the developer side of the property line too.
That's correct.
And how many did you say there were? Seven. Okay. I can see, where they might have good arguments that, those are their trees, so they can do what they like with that land to a certain extent. But
sure.
It's certainly interesting to hear about the estimates, even if like, as you say, you take the most conservative estimates about how far the root system might go, it would extend beyond that 30-foot buffer.
If I may, just before I'm cut off here, I just wanted to also mention. So I mean, one of the other important parts of what my findings were that. So I mentioned that the 7 mature oak trees on the Ramish Farm prop line. A couple of those trees are actually like the trunks are actually kind of like if you are going underneath the fence, so they somewhat could be considered a shared tree. Obviously, if they wanted to, they could go in and they could cut down everything to the part where it hits the fence, and then the tree would just fall over and topple over. But it could be considered like a shared tree. And I was also doing some research on how much it costs if you go down and you cut down a neighbor's tree, or if you kill it, and the fine for that is $2,500. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is that in my findings is that the trees of like trees, like oak trees, so like 2 different red oaks or 2 different white oaks, if they're growing near each other, their root systems can graft to one another. So if one tree dies, it possibly could affect others.
Right, you mentioned that. Thanks.
Sure, thank you.
That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the registrants? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do we have questions for staff? Yes, Alder Abba.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. Before we go into question answer with the staff, I want to say a few things.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Chair. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So it's great to be back. As you already seen through work group, some of the concerns. I want to again mention the process has been done on this project. So there was 2 neighborhood meetings, there was focus group, and then there were several individual meetings as well as the meetings happen with the work group and the developer as well. So a lot of communication has been done, and neighborhood expressed their concerns. There are 3 major issues in front of you all and to decide from policy standpoint. The first is the property on the south end of Lakeview, the lot number 119 till 131 or 32. Neighbors, I think so the ideal situation is not to construct any homes there, dedicate all of that land as a park to save all of those trees. And the rationale behind is in 2008-9 neighborhood plan recommended a park space. And that park space also recommended next to wetland as well as southern border. So to accommodate the park space as per neighborhood plans, it's important for us to protect the trees as well as have some more open space or park for the residents. Second issue on hand is wetland. So wetland delineation is out. It's somewhere around, if I'm not wrong, 4.5 acre or somewhere there, 4+ acreage. And then there's a 72 feet buffer around the property. And if you see in the lot, some of the houses are right on the corner. of the wetland. So there's also concerns about putting the houses so close to wetland, and that will definitely, we need to, and we've been through this whole process of Hartmeyer, and we know how much I stress on upland area, and so important to have upland to protect the wetland and create that buffer between homes and the wetland. So that's the second point. And that particular wetland should be connected with the school, the through park system, because a lot of school kids go to the natural area as well as wetland to get education. I like the concept of single family homes. As we know, the vacancy rate in Madison is really low, especially for single family homes are extremely in high demand. So that could be a welcome feature in this project. However, on the eastern side of the project, which is on Packers Avenue, there's a 65 decibel line goes through multifamily. And that is a huge concern to have. This is an environmental justice situation on the hand. And the biggest concern is, do we want to construct multifamily and high density in the area which is impacted by F-35? And according to their report, some part of the, according to EIS, environmental impact statement, it clearly says houses will be inhabitable for use. We don't know how far this line goes. This line is all drawn by computer model. Once the F-16s are retired, F-35 have to run for 2 years, and after then they have to collect data. Might be this line go further away or close. So big question on hand is, do we want to allow high density, or do we allow any housing under F-35 decibels? So three things in front of you. One is wetland, one is park space, and one is F-35. And just to reiterate the park space, the neighborhood plan, the page number 4, it's the point O. It clearly says utilize land in the southwest corner of the site near Lakeview Elementary School as a park space. However, in this particular plan, there is no park space. So I will encourage you all to put this on a place, on a file without prejudice. So bring it back to neighborhood and let's reanalyze this project. And I will end here with saying thanks to all for your service. Take care.
Thank you, Alder. Do we have any other questions? Do we have any questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Sondheim.
I have two questions. One related to, I guess both kind of related to stormwater. I noticed obviously the wetland delineation and then the stormwater area to the north and east. Are those sized according to the newest stormwater ordinance? And then also, I'm wondering if those kind of have to be there because of the topography of the site, or if there was some increased green space area where the forest is now, if there would be any opportunity to capture additional developable space elsewhere. And that might be also for the development team, so I apologize if I should have asked them earlier.
Okay. Anyone on staff, can they respond? Yes, Ms. Cullen? Yes. Did I mute you again?
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
I was watching my mute button flash on my screen. So regarding the location of the stormwater, the basins at the northeast corner are in the low point. That's more or less the only location that's really available, I believe. The topography of the site doesn't really lend itself to doing stormwater basins anywhere else. The wetland area to the west is exactly that. It's a wetland. I'm sure it will accommodate some of the stormwater, but it is not usable as part of the stormwater calculations that need to be looked at for that stormwater management plan. regarding the standards under which it was reviewed, I believe this was submitted after the new stormwater regulations were adopted. Although I will have to admit that I may need to check to confirm that.
Okay. And then related to that, for the wetland delineation, it looks like it was delineated in late 2019. Do we have like time limits for how recent a wetland has to be delineated from when you maybe pull permits or have your final plat, just to make sure we have current data on where that line falls?
I am not sure, given the length of this process, when they applied, it was within the time limit. I might look to Ms. Stouter for a better answer, though.
Sure. I'm afraid that I would even have to defer to engineering staff to know if there's a set time limit within which a wetland delineation would have had to be completed. I know that if DNR regulations were to change between the time a delineation was completed and when a submittal came in, then likely there would need to be a new delineation if the DNR was requiring more information. But at this point, 2019, in my estimation, is recent. That's a contemporary delineation, and otherwise, I would need to check in with our engineering colleagues and respond to the Plan Commission.
Okay, but I mean, if it didn't move forward for a while, and like you say, some DNR regulations changed in the meantime, it would likely need to be redone. Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Heck.
I see that Anne Freewald from Parks is here. It might be for Parks, but it might also partially be for planning. We heard a powerful quote from kind of a driving statement of purpose for how we should have equity in choosing our parkland. And I'm wondering kind of how that informed or informs our parks and open space plan. And we read comments from Superintendent Knapp about the distance to nearby parks and how it meets the requirements. Is that statement that we heard still applicable? And does it really more inform policy rather than individual decisions about individual parks? And I'm just kind of getting an idea of that. That's my first part of my question. And the second part of my question is, when there's a park shown in a neighborhood plan or a special area plan that maybe conflicts with that current concept and distance rule that Parks has, how should we evaluate that? in your opinion? That's probably for Ms. Stouter.
Who would like to answer that question? Ms. Stoddard or Anne Frywell? Who wants to take a crack at it?
I can take the second piece, and then I think if Anne could take the first, and maybe there will be a restatement of it for that. I think that'd be great. This neighborhood plan that was adopted back in 2009 included a few different concepts for the Ramish property. It was not as detailed as some of our peripheral area plans, where we work very, very closely with other agencies, including the Parks Division, to locate the most optimal locations for future parks. And we talk through park size and the likely connection between the number of units that the plan is recommending and the size of the park property. I think we are working we're working closely together now as we bring forward sub-area plans. Many of you remember, and the Alder will remember, that careful coordination within the Ostermeyer special area plan, where we really did look closely at number of units, the park space recommendation and location, and those, those worked together very well. I think in this case, the Parks Division is working with a few different areas of guidance. They're working from their Parks and Open Space Plan, from the broader comprehensive plan, which definitely calls for equitable, dispersion of parkland throughout the city. And then a 2009 neighborhood plan that had some suggestions of where a park could go. And so I would invite Anne to jump in here and talk a little bit about about what they're weighing as they think through the optimal location and size of a park in this greater area.
And, sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that.
Thank you.
To the best of my ability. I wasn't around in 2009 when that plan was written. And as Heather mentioned, there were concepts that were provided on, I think, part 1, page 14 and 15, I think it was. And then when you get to the actual recommended land use map, which is in part 2, the Ramish Farm was gray because it was not part of the city of Madison at the time. So there were no land use recommendations in that plan per se, aside from the concepts. We have since written a couple of park and open space master plans since that effort, the neighborhood plan. And I believe what Mr. Knapp said in his earlier memo, which was written, I think, in either August or October of last year, was that we would not be interested in a mini park in this area. And that is our general policy that we try to follow here in the city of Madison, because we have a ton of mini parks. I don't know, you guys are aware, we have 260 parks total. Many of them are less than 2 acres. Some of them are less than 1 acre in size. And that is the Park and Open Space Plan also talks about taking responsibility for the long-term sustainability of the system of parks and acquiring a whole series of tiny little parks where you have to drive a mower there, unload the mower, mow the lawn, load the mower back up again, head over to the next mini park, which frankly doesn't even provide that much recreational activity or benefit. We've determined that that's not wise. And we've made the determination in the last, I'd say, 10 years or so. So that was what he was getting at that time. Now, I have visited the site. Someone asked that question. I took a walk with the Fayed teacher who also manages the school forest, and we had a nice conversation. There was also a volunteer there. I can't remember her name. It's a beautiful little campus that they've got there, and I do think that a piece of parkland, even if it was smaller than we would normally accept, we look for 5 acres or more. Even if it was smaller than we would normally accept, in this particular location, punches above its weight. Because it would be useful to the school. We could maybe have a shared use agreement with the school where neighbors from this neighborhood could then also use the parkland and the school campus next door during off-school times. Now, we don't have that set yet, so that's not a for sure thing, but we can see how a piece of parkland in the particular location on the north side of the school would be really helpful.
Okay.
Right now, just doing the calculations for the single family homes, if they did the 124 they were looking at, that just in land use, the land park impact fee, the park impact fee that focuses on the land would be north of $500,000 for 124 single family homes. That's not counting the multifamily. We don't have a unit count on that yet. Or approximately 3 acres. And I just did a really rough guesstimate. I didn't do each individual lot shown there, but I kind of did a rough squared off lot of that land north of the school. That's about 2 acres. Would get us would get us that land and could pay the final acreage with cash. So Parks is willing to consider that. We are not interested in the wetland. It's not, we do manage wetlands but we look for high quality park or high quality natural resource land that we can then pour some city investment into and get high quality out of it. It wouldn't be in our best interest to acquire through dedication or outright acquisition this particular wetland here, in our opinion. Does that answer your questions?
It does. I see Mr. Punt might have something to add.
Yes, just yes, thank you to Ann. I wanted to just expand very briefly on something that that Heather mentioned, in that the neighborhood plan does present those two concepts, but they are exactly that. They're concepts of development. Several plans will show some concepts, but the plans usually have a more detailed recommendation. Like Heather said, many of the NDPs that and some of the neighborhood plans that are more recent kind of draw out those land uses a lot more specifically. The concepts that are shown in the plan are more general in that they are kind of a table of options. The only kind of land use plan that we do have to work with in looking at this plan is the comprehensive plan. And I do want to point out, related to what Ann said, is that when we made the generalized future land use map in the comprehensive plan, we only showed larger parks as parks and open space. There are a great many mini parks throughout the city. Many of those are in residential areas. Those are not shown on the generalized future land use map. So the kind of the larger area in this site is low residential. Throughout the city, there are many small parks that are located in LR areas. So the LR land use designation in this area doesn't preclude the inclusion of a small park, but we did not show any specific sites for a park in the future land use map.
Alder Heck, do you have any other follow-up?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker, Commissioner Sundquist.
Yes, just one question for staff on the, if there's anybody who knows what the safe distance from an oak tree is for development. We had some testimony about 100 feet or more.
Heather?
I would first look to Ann, but I don't want to put Ann on the spot either. I think, it probably depends on the engineering solutions that you might have at your disposal to make sure that the routes are safe. Ann, do you have any distances?
Yeah. What I've always understood is that you definitely, in our policies and standards, stay away from the root zone, which is defined by the drip line. Now, I heard Teddy discuss earlier that he felt it was beyond the drip line. I have not seen that, but I am a landscape architect who spends an awful lot of time doing things besides studying trees. So I can't say I'm an expert on that, but when I'm working on a site, we try to avoid any kind of compaction or disturbance of the root zone, which we consider under anything inside the drip line of the tree, the outer line of the canopy.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Commissioner Sundquist? No. Alder Lemur.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I have two quick questions. One, for condition 69, I'm not clear on why the phrasing is encouraged instead of required. Why can't we make that stronger?
I will hazard an answer here. I think because of the previous discussion that the Parks and Open Space Plan and the Generalized Future Land Use Map do not show parkland here, we did not choose to word that to require the dedication. I believe that if the Plan Commission does feel that it is necessary to dedicate parkland, and that the plans and the standards of approval would require parkland here, that you can certainly change the condition language to require it.
Thank you. My second question is, it's probably likely that if this were approved, it would need to, some of the elements of this would need to get conditional use approval, right?
That is correct, yes.
And would we be able to put in requirements for noise mitigation installed as part of those approvals?
As part of later conditional use approval?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It is something that we're exploring actually now after conversations with Alder Abbas regarding the issue of the noise from F-35s. I believe that when you look at our conditional use standards, we may actually need to develop a refined conditional use standard in the future that has more to do with future residents of the buildings being approved in order to grapple with something like that. But I'm confident that it's within our purview. We may just need a more specific standard in the future to link to this. But it's certainly something that I think we could, we find precedent in other ways. We certainly make requirements. Now they're grounded in they're helped by statute for highway noise abatement. When a residential project is constructed along a highway, we have the ability to add those standards. And so I think, in short, I think the answer is yes. I think the longer answer is that we need to do a little bit more work and develop a little bit more specificity in our standards to grapple with this more in the future, especially in this part of the city.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Rommel.
Thank you. I'm following up with Alder Lemmer's question. I did send an email to staff kind of along this line. And one of the parts of my question was, can we say that we'll approve part of a plat, but not the whole thing? How does this work? I don't think I've ever been where I wanted to dissect a plat so much. And so what powers do we have to do that? And for example, the whole, Eastern, the Packers third, the whole corridor, if that's going to be affected by F-35s, can we not approve that until we have more data?
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, so yes, we did hear from City Attorney John Strange, kind of expanding on that question that you had. And while there is some leeway in the code to approve a rezoning area that's smaller than what is proposed, it does not appear that the same authority exists for approving a smaller section of a preliminary plat. So if there are areas of concern that the Plan Commission has, I think it is better to either refer with some good direction as to how those areas need to be changed, or to place it on file without prejudice and have the development team submit a new plat with those changes.
Thank you. So we shouldn't mess with it. We should just wholesale take an action either to place it on file or to refer. But how does the timing issue for the subdivision approval fit into that second pathway.
Yeah, I think if the Plan Commission were to want to move into the direction of referral, we would need a written comment from the applicant team noting that they were comfortable with that. And that could be in the form of an email sent to me during this meeting. But otherwise, the commission should act by either recommending to place it on file or approving it with conditions.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful. And so I did ask this question, and again, Alder Lemmer kind of got to the conditional use thing, but I just want, for the record, Colin, you responded to me like, well, I said the council is contemplating changes to some of the zoning districts. If this were moved forward with the zoning as proposed and some of the, like the CCT or the TRU1 were changed, what would apply to the adopted plat or the rezoning?
Yeah, so when a proposed project would come in for the conditional uses, the whatever the ordinance is at that time would be what they are allowed to do. So if this is approved and changes are made to the CCT district sometime this summer, say, and then in the fall, an application is made that requires a conditional use. It would be reviewed according to what the code is at that time. I think there are, if the commission has concerns about that, I think there are two different things they can do. You could certainly recommend a different zoning code. Instead of CCT, perhaps NMX is a little bit more restrictive and a smaller scale. Additionally, there is precedent that we have placed restrictions on certain parcels in plats for say a lower density. Or something like that. If there is an area that's, say TRU2, we can put a restriction on the plat that the density would be restricted to whatever it is in TRU1. Everything else about TRU2 would apply, though. So those are two different ways that the Plan Commission can address that if that is a concern that they have.
And one more kind of zoning question. In your staff report, you talked about lots 5 and 27, the two parcels west of Whitetail Lane that back out on the alley. You kind of suggested a different zoning would be more preferred. And so I asked you what that would be. So could you help explain what those lots are and what's at issue and what could change?
Yes, so lots 5 and 27 back onto the alley, kind of center north in the lot or in the parcel. They are proposed for TRV2, Traditional Residential Varied 2 zoning. The concept plan that was provided to staff was that those would be sets of row houses with garage access off the alleys. Immediately to the west, still on that alley, are properties that are proposed to be zoned TRC3. That is a kind of a smaller lot, single family zoning district. The row houses would not be able to be constructed under TRC3 zoning. It's only the C districts do not allow row houses, but they are allowed in the V districts. So if the density or the building forms that would be allowed in TRV2 are not something that the Plan Commission feels are appropriate under the recommendations of the adopted plans, they could do a different TRC district, perhaps TRC3 or TRC4, and still do kind of a smaller, more dense single family development type on that alley as well.
And so thinking more about like what you said earlier, like along the Packers Avenue edge, that if CCT weren't maybe the best fit, maybe it would be NMX. But what if I'm just wondering about like if it's in the 65 decibel range and it's not really good, high quality place to live, what other zoning would sort of say, okay, we could have commercial only or employment? Are there some options that we could consider there?
Nothing that the Plan Commission could actually recommend rezoning it to tonight. So the menu of options that you have is fairly small with regard to the area that's being proposed to rezone to CCT. You would basically have an option to ratchet that down to a lesser intensive mixed use district. So within that same chapter of the zoning code, the best choice I think would be the NMX district. And so the city, the Plan Commission is not permitted to switch into a different whole use category in a recommended rezoning. And if that makes sense, that can't happen on the floor of the Commission Council.
Any of the E districts or?
Right, right.
So much going on in this really important parcel. I guess I probably have one more question and I'll give up the floor. So I asked about lot 80 when in my email earlier, and you suggested that it's and I see it's on the top edge of it. It's got the multifamily, but what is the rest of it? Is that just going to be part of the wetland delineation? There's no like lot shown. It's just one big piece.
Yeah, I believe that the original concept for that would be a residential building complex where there are a number of smaller multi-family buildings on there, a collection of 4, 6, or 8 unit buildings, perhaps a set of townhouses as well. I can't recall off the top of my head how many units were on there, but it was ballpark 20 to 30 across that entire site.
Okay, and I'm thank you all for listening to all my questions. The one more I had was, in the NWS adopted plan, it talked about transit-oriented development as part of the goals, and there is a condition under there that Metro put about improving Sunfield to make it a transit corridor. And we did hear some public comments about concerns even tonight, but in emails about Sunfield becoming sort of a cut through to CV and Packers. Did staff look at some of these street connectivity questions?
Yes. So when the applicant came to staff for our original kind of looks at the plat several months ago, traffic engineering did make it clear that they expected an east-west connection across the site in the place of Sunfeld, as well as the north-south connections on Elliott Lane and
or something.
Yeah. Yes. Regarding the transit, at the moment there's a route that goes up and down Sherman Avenue, across Tennyson to Packers Avenue. The Metro Transit has indicated that it's likely that if Sunfield goes through, that service would be moved up to that location, and so that street would have to be constructed to accommodate the Metro route.
And so with the idea of transit-oriented development being where there's higher density, because you can live right by a bus station, does the proposed zoning reflect that, or is it more just, it's a residential neighborhood with a bus going through it? I
I will look to Heather for any additional thoughts, but I would say that the concentration of the mixed use and the multifamily zoning districts at Sunfeld and Packers could be an example of transit-oriented development where we're concentrating some of that density in a place that will be served by transit.
Thank you for answering all my questions. I'm good now.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Heck.
Thank you. Alder Rummel is right. There are a lot of zoning issues all mixed up in this, and it's complicated. I realize that Mr. Punt nor Ms. Stouter are lawyers, attorneys, but maybe they play them at Plan Commission occasionally, so you'll probably be the ones to answer this. Let's say that I'm very concerned about the impact of the F-35s, yet I hear that, it could be 4 years before we know where that sort of, ambiguous 65 decibel contour might lie. Do you see anything in our in Plan Commission's ability to, in the way that we handle zoning map and text amendments that could reference the F-35s and their potential impact that we don't really know about yet, and to make a decision about something that's being proposed today? I worry that the conditional use standards that you mentioned as perhaps coming in the near future even, still won't help much because we don't know, we may not know anything for 4 years. So I'm wondering if it's going to be buried in the purpose of zoning map and text amendments that we need to tease something out if we were to try to base a denial of this, or even, or to give guidance. That there really isn't a lot of meat to our to what we have available to us. Mm-hmm. It would probably have to be teased out of the number one purpose. Is that how you would see that? Any advice?
The public safety and welfare standard for rezoning. I think that's really the opportunity, and it is a fairly weak one. I think you're right. It's something that we have not spoken at length with the city attorney's office on this, although we had a conversation. I had a conversation with Alder Boss just last week about what are our potential strategies. When we completed the comprehensive plan and of course the 2009 neighborhood plan, this wasn't something that we foresaw in the future, and so it wasn't taken into account. I think what I've spoken with the Alder about is, do we need to do a sub-area plan that takes a closer look at this and examine a range of possibilities based on the little that we know that's been modeled for us with regard to the noise that might be expected. I do think one of the best tools we have at our disposal right now is going to be conditions regarding construction. Now, I think there's a very strong market desire to do that too, right? To be able to market buildings to residential tenants that have a lot of built-in noise protection. But as the Alder mentioned, that misses the outdoor spaces as well. And so there's a lot that we're considering at this point. We don't have a lot of tools to grapple with it in rezoning and conditional use requests before you right now. I think it will take some time to make any amendments to our plans or put forth a new sub-area plan that deals better with this issue. So I don't have a lot of great answers for you at this point, but I do think you noted the portion of the standards that would be most appropriate to cite if there are concerns with the passage of this evening.
Thank you. That answers my question.
I have a couple of questions. And now I understand why this plat and rezoning has been delayed for so many months. There are a lot of, very interesting issues related to this development. And I understand that our current parks plan doesn't show a park in this area. But it seems like what the neighbors are talking about is not a mini park or even a park that's people recreate in or have a tot lot in. They're talking about kind of an environmentally sensitive area or a woodland area that is an extension of what the school district has. And I think that falls into a different kind of category, and maybe preserving some of that area to preserve trees, which we've gone on record saying that's very important for the city. And again, I'm not a parks director, so I don't know if a tree to woodland area takes as much maintenance as obviously mowing a tot lot or a mini park. But it doesn't seem like there'd be a lot of mowers there. There may be some tree removal once in a while, but I guess preserving some of that area, it almost seems appropriate because again, it's not a recreational active park, but it would be kind of a park space that would preserve an environmentally sensitive area. And I guess oak trees are environmentally sensitive, I think, because of the root system is so fragile. So I guess I don't know if I have a question, but that's a concern at least I have. So I don't know if Anne can address that, or Heather, or maybe we just move on to the next speaker. So seeing no comments on that, Anne, would you like to take a stab at that?
Yeah, only to say that I agree this would not be an active use recreational park. I know that there are oaks that run along that property line. I heard someone say earlier there were 7 oaks on the development side. I don't know if he means in that immediate area. When I walked the site, I saw a lot of, sort of scrubby volunteer trees. Mm-hmm. But that's not to say there wouldn't be of some value or that it wouldn't be of some value. I don't see this as being an active use park. I think we would probably work with the school district to expand what they're doing and make the whole thing work cooperatively. So as I said, that the parkland would punch above its weight in terms of it's not that great. There's nothing particularly compelling about that particular chunk of land, except for that it's next to the oaks on Lakeview school grounds.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe the city and the school district could work together in maybe developing some play equipment on the school site that on their flat area that could add to the recreational activity, the active recreational activity, and the school district could accept the wooded area, which would add to their outdoor activities that they have with their students. So I think some trade-off there at least seems appropriate.
Well, we're willing to try. I don't want to make any says I can't keep, because we need to work with MMSD on that. What if we were to try to come up with a shared use agreement? So yes. I can't commit to anything.
Sure. Thank you, Anne. Alder Abbas, do you have something to add?
Yes, just 2 things I would like to mention. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and great discussion we are having here. At Urban Design Commission, we had a similar type of project which have a lot of wood, and the commission gave initial approval and asked them to do a ecological survey of the tree. and the Heartland Ecological Group that survey, and it gives quite a bit of information of us where the roads goes and how much it's going to impact the trees. So that could be one possibility. This group can do a survey, then we have scientific data in front of us and see how much oak tree and how this, especially those lots, are going to impact. The second thing, just for the record, and if my memory served me well, I remember that during special area plan, Oscar Mayer special area plan commission, as well as the Common Council, when we were debating over Hartmeyer land and housing and how much housing unit we want to create, next to Pick and Save parcel, McGrath Group want to develop a housing there. And staff on the record said that this area is impacted by F-35. In our planning, special area plan, we want this area to be office use. So they denied to put housing there. And they mentioned F-35. Because one of the hypotheses was, let's put housing there, save more land at Hartmeyer. But that did not happen. So I want to bring that back. And just for a reminder, might be there is a possibility for us to look at the eastern border of Packer Avenue and look for the commercial zoning. I know we can't change zoning, right now, but we should definitely think about that as well, about what type of zoning do we really want while we don't have a data in next 4 years or 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Saltheim.
Thank you. I have a question for, I guess, Heather or Colin. So the preliminary plat and the zoning map amendment is before us. So then the final plat would come back to us eventually if it was approved. I'm just wondering, what are the, I guess, standards for approving a final plat, kind of what our ability would be to, maybe make some adjustments at that time, or because we're rezoning it right now, would we be locked into the zoning and the preliminary plat? I'm cognizant of, not wanting to hold things up forever while we wait for a federal process that's completely unknown, but also if something does change and we feel that an adjustment is necessary or warranted on that portion of the site, kind of what is our ability to make changes at the final plat stage?
A final plat does need to be, materially consistent with the preliminary plat. It would be unlikely that during the final plat stage, we would be making any, substantial changes to what would have already been approved under the preliminary plat.
Okay.
Yeah, I think to put it in a slightly different way, this is the opportunity really to review the substance. I think the preliminary plat and rezoning provide certainty to those moving forward with developments. And so we want to make sure that final plats are substantively the same as the preliminary plat, and small details will change, often based on the conditions of approval during this process. But Colin's right. I don't think we want to save substantive changes for later.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. That's all I have.
Anne, do you have something to add?
No, sorry.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Any other questions for anyone? Okay. Well, do we have a motion? Yes, Commissioner Rummel.
I move to place the preliminary plat and the rezoning on file without prejudice.
Do we have a second? Second by Alder Heck. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I'll try. You have such a high standard of framing these things, but it seems like this proposal isn't quite there. There are so many unanswered questions, and things that like are out of our control, because once we create the skeleton of a road and parcels and zoning, we can't necessarily really do serious change later. So, well, I think this is a good place to build new housing, a single family if we can, mixed use, low residential, medium residential. I just have grave concerns about the parcel along Packers and what kind of quality can go there. And until I have more information about that, I really don't want to approve this. Secondarily, the whole piece about the portion of like 119 and 122 through 131, I'd really like to know if the developer would consider and take a look at doing some kind of more forest and kind of an agreement on that section. And since we really haven't heard from them yet, I don't feel confident about that. And I think Mr. Cantrell's points about it's not necessarily a park area is really good. It's a different category. It's like an environmentally sensitive area and a school forest area. And if there's some way that we could get our head around how it doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote, a manicured park, but needs to be something more protective than what is being proposed. And I'm sure there's more things, but that's what I got right now.
Thank you. Alder Heck, do you have any comments on the motion that you'd like to make?
Thanks. I agree with what Alder Rummel said, but frankly, I think the agreement between Parks and MMSD and coming to some sort of accommodation for the southern border that would be a better situation for everybody involved. I think I can't speak for the developer, but I can imagine that they could get there relatively quickly on some form of agreement, all those parties. But for me, it's about the unknown impacts of the F-35s. And I liked what Alder Abbas had to say about if we have to wait 5 years to understand the impacts, that we still can minimize the chances that people are going to be living in uninhabitable zones by potentially rethinking the eastern portion of along Packers. And we'll never eliminate it because the doubt, because we don't know. But that's why I agree with Alder Rummel's motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Sondheim.
Thanks. I agree with what has been said, and I just wanted to add, and I think Alder Abbas alluded to this, that it's fairly common for developers to do a more specific kind of tree survey with their engineer. I think that would be very valuable for this proposal to get a little more detail and some input perhaps from the Forestry Division. And then also on the eastern portion of the site, perhaps considering a lower density zoning district that would provide some relief from potential F-35 impact, and also, trigger a conditional use for more dense use, that we would have kind of that assurance that a higher density would get a second look.
Thank you. Any other comments by the commission members? Seeing none, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand. Seeing no raised hands, the motion carries unanimously. Heather, that motion was for both items, 6 and 7. Yes, okay, thank you. Well, we'll be moving on to the next item, and that is item number 11. Legistar 64610, creating sections 28.022 to 00496 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of properties located at 3650 Milwaukee Street and 102 West Corporate Drive in Aldermanic District 15 from Industrial Limited District to Commercial Corridor Transitional District. Heather, do you have a presentation on this item?
Just a very brief one. We don't have any folks registered to speak this evening, and the sponsoring Alder Foster is not in attendance, but I just wanted to present briefly. This item was before you in a different form back in November of last year, and it is the proactive rezoning of a portion of the area covered by the Milwaukee Street Special Area Plan. And I just want to clarify with this visual that the area that is being proposed for rezoning now is this area here, shown as CCT. Today, it is zoned Industrial Limited, or IL. This here is the site of the city's East Transfer Point, and this is the site of the Amazon distribution facility here. Last time this was before you, the rezoning was perhaps more consistent with the plan recommendations for medium density residential back in this area. So we had a residential district proposed here, and then along the Milwaukee Street frontage, including a parcel on the east side of Corporate Drive, was an area that was proposed for rezoning to the TSS, or Traditional Shopping Street District. As many of you are aware, the property owner at the time of this property put forward a protest petition after the Plan Commission voted to approve the last rezoning for the site, and that failed to pass at the Common Council. And so the rezoning was not passed at Common Council, and Alder Foster has put forward this revised rezoning proposal before you this evening. I think the one note of interest is that the CCT, or Commercial Corridor Transitional District, maintains conforming uses for both the city's East Transfer Point and for the package delivery service, the Amazon distribution warehouse. And so while some of the elements of the design of the site today are still non-conforming from a bulk and design perspective, the uses are conforming uses. And that was an element that was very important in the discussion at the Common Council. I should mention this evening that we do have two registrants from the Leo Ritter ownership team. Just a second here, but neither are wishing to speak at this point. Amy Bauman, representing Leo Ritter and Company, in opposition and willing to answer questions. And then Nathan Wadier, representing Leo Ritter and Company, opposed and not wishing to speak.
Thank you. Do I need to open the public hearing on this item since no one wants to speak on it?
Only if commissioners have questions for the registrant willing to address questions.
Okay. Do the commission members have questions for any of the registrants? Raise your hand if so. I see none. I'll close the public hearing. Do the commission members have questions for staff? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Okay, yes, we have a motion. Motion by Commissioner Leamer. Do I have a second? A second by Alder Rummel. Do you have any comments on the motion?
Not much. Just that this is the compromise that I and some other alders had wanted to see at the Common Council. So I think this is the middle ground that folks were more comfortable with. So I recommend that we approve it.
Okay, thank you. Alder Rummel, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I would just add that it's more consistent with the adopted plan and kind of gives the message of what the goals are for this area. better than the existing zoning.
Okay.
It allows the existing use so that can go forward without worrying.
Thank you. So unless I see a raised hand, I will assume unanimous consent. Seeing no raised hands, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the next item. It's item number 12, Legislature 64362, 702 East Dayton Street in Alder District 2. Consideration of a conditional use in the traditional residential Very 2 district for a non-accessory parking facility to allow a vacant lot to be improved as a parking lot for a nearby residential development. Heather, do you have a presentation on this item?
Sure, I'll share just a brief overview, and then Matt Tucker will be here to address questions at the end as well. So in this case, in our TRV2, or Traditional Residential Varied 2 district, a parking facility in and of itself, a surface parking facility, requires a conditional use review and approval. In this case, the applicant would like to utilize a vacant site as a parking lot with approximately 22 stalls to facilitate some additional parking for a 189-unit building right across the street. And so it's an auxiliary parking lot offsite for an existing multifamily residential building. All in all, staff believes that with the conditions of approval regarding screening, that the standards can be met, and has recommended approval of the requested conditional use. Again, Matt Tucker, who has been involved in this in recent weeks, may have a lot to share regarding if questions come up in the end. I know we do have a few registrants, but I'll leave it there at this point. And Chair, if you'd like to open the public hearing, I can read the registrants.
I will open the public hearing on this item. Heather, can you read the first registrant?
I can. We will have two members from the applicant team, sequentially Madeline Wall of Livingston Street, representing Veritas Village, to be followed by Eric McLeod of East Main Street, also representing Veritas Village. And in one moment, I can pull up a visual that was sent to staff recently. Just a moment here.
Commission, I do not see any of those people in attendance.
Okay. Okay. Given that, we do have a few other registrants wishing to speak. First is Leah Velardita of East Dayton Street, opposed, to be followed by Amanda Birch.
Thank you. The first speaker has 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I am a longtime resident of this neighborhood, as is my husband, and I want to thank you very much for giving me a few minutes today to say our piece about this. And I did send comments already, but I just want to say them again. We strongly oppose this conditional use permit for a few different reasons. First, when we look at this property, the biggest thing for us that comes up is the fundamental question of, is this the highest and best use of this land space? I know that staff supports the approval of this space, and on paper, I think it satisfies a lot of requirements, but I'm really asking the Planning Commission to consider the much bigger picture and long-term vision and effects that approving the CUP would have. We're at a time right now when housing, especially affordable housing, is in really high demand and very difficult to come by. And the city is about to consider higher density in the neighborhoods that are adjacent to downtown. A surface lot for a handful of cars seems a waste of valuable space. Furthermore, this lot encourages an increase in vehicle traffic in an already very congested residential area, not far from parks, a school, a bike boulevard, and many families with young children. We understand density is increasing, and with it, the number of cars. The issue with balancing density and vehicle traffic with safety is further challenged if the CUP is allowed. Second, when flooding in this area continues to be a deep concern and a real problem, a surface lot with a tiny amount of porous space seems like a step backward in planning and flooding mitigation. Indeed, it feels ill-planned if planned at all. Third, Veritas Village has already admitted that they've covered all of the parking for every unit in their building, and these are just simply extra spaces that they're offering. Again, considering already this area is premium land and the developers already satisfied those parking requirements, what kind of precedent does this set for future developers? And my last piece here is that Veritas Village and T-Wall Enterprises have been one of the least transparent and forthcoming developers in this area, and this neighborhood has interacted with many over the past several years. I have, in my previous role as vice president for TLNA many years ago, the entire process, I feel, has left neighbors with a lack of trust in the developer's actions, and it is apparent that the safety, security, and well-being of the neighborhood is not important in this developer's considerations. For the duration the Veritas Village added parking stalls in the space, part of the lot has sat in very rough shape, gravel all over the place every time it rains or there's been snow removal. Part of the lot doesn't have bumper guards or any kind of barrier between the parked cars, and the houses next to it. The total lack of care, planning, and neighbor input leave us feeling that Veritas Village and T-Wall Enterprises have been poor stewards in their actions, driven only by the profit that they can make. In closing, again, we strongly oppose this lot gaining a conditional use permit. We encourage more vision and planning to be put into this space and to consider not only the neighborhood that has to live with the consequences, but the future of this entire area. Again, thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes are up. The next
Chair, I understand that perhaps the folks registered to speak as part of the applicant team have registered under different names and may have been raising their hands. Jesse, are you able to find it? I think it's 1252. Maybe it's. Oh, sorry. A registrant named EMM 1252.
Yeah. This is Eric McLeod. I'm sorry if this was registered incorrectly.
You have 3 minutes and you have some echo. I don't know if you can fix that.
Okay, is the echo fixed now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Apologize, and I'm sorry for the error in the name that came up. So what I'd like to do is to allow for Maddie Wall to present on some of the substantive details of this presentation. But since you've already given me my 3 minutes, I'll start, Mr. Chair. I've been representing Veritas Village in an ongoing matter with the City of Madison that Matt Tucker has referenced in his memo, and I wanted to provide the additional side of the story from Veritas Village's perspective. The property at issue has been used as a surface parking lot for many decades, and it's been a continuous use that we believe quite clearly constitutes a legal non-conforming use. So the property has been used for that purpose for many decades. The city disagrees, and it brought an enforcement action seeking to force us to discontinue that use. As part of that ongoing litigation, the parties agreed that we would seek this CUP for the purpose of settling the dispute. And we see that as a win-win, both for the city, so that it doesn't need to litigate, for Veritas Village, so that it can proceed with this use, but also to provide the opportunity for some important improvements to this property that we couldn't do otherwise. As a legal non-conforming use, we can't make any kinds of changes other than to maintain the use in its current form. So we think it's positive for the city, the neighbors, that the condition of the property will be improved in a number of ways that Maddie Wall's going to talk about in a minute. If we're unable to get the CUP, both Veritas Village and the city will be in a position where we're going to have to resolve that issue through further litigation. Obviously, that's not this committee's job to sort out that dispute. but we wanted to make sure you were aware of it so that you know that what we're seeking to do here is to get a CUP in order to resolve that dispute with the city. We're confident that we would prevail, but we ultimately would really like to resolve it in the form of the CUP that we've requested here. So I'll end there and I'll let you turn it over to Maddie.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Madeline with Veritas Village. We're the apartment building that owns the parking lot on Dayton Street. And I just wanted to highlight some of the improvements that we're going to hopefully be making in order to address some of the concerns. We are seeking to pave the parking lot, which should address the gravel issue. And we also would like to add a fence around the property. There is a fence on part of it, but we'd like to continue that around the entire site and also add a gate to make it fob access only, which would hopefully address some of the safety concerns. And then we'll also add a bioretention basin, which would address some of the water, since we know that's an issue in this area. And then we also have a landscaping plan, so we'll be adding trees and other plants around the site. And that's kind of the improvements that we would like to make to this area.
Thank you. Heather, are there any other registrants? Yes, okay.
Yes. Okay, the next registrant is Amanda Birch of East Dayton Street, opposed, and to be followed by Joette Peterson.
There's no attendee. The Amanda is not in the attendees list, but Joette is.
Okay, Joette Peterson of East Dayton Street, opposed, to be followed by Jason George Hack.
You have 3 minutes.
You're unmuted. Go ahead. Joette, you are unmuted. Go ahead. Oh.
Hello?
You're muted again.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's the second time. I apologize. Technology is not a strong suit of mine, but you can hear me now?
Yes, that's fine. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm at 726 East Dayton, right next to the parking lot. One thing I would like to address, first of all, because it's been brought up, is that it's been a parking lot for all these years, construction site for the last several years. But before that, parking lot for Reynolds employees, so a completely different situation from this. Reynolds employees came in Monday through Friday from like 7 or 8 in the morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon, drove in, parked, worked, left. No traffic nights and no traffic on weekends from the employees or this being a parking lot. So I've been here since 2003. So I see that as a huge difference because there is like a lot more traffic than the previous use, and there's a lot of noise. Perhaps Reynolds employees were more mature, older, I don't know, but you know, there's people who drive in at any time of the day or night, sometimes with loud music, bass going, loud vehicles. There's people getting stuck with front wheel drive and not knowing to back into the parking lots, and then just doing the run for long periods of time trying to get vehicles out. If the parking lot is approved, I believe that the fence in the front of the property is a good idea with the fobs. However, I'm totally not okay with the, a 4-foot like aluminum fence on the side of the property, because also I'm raising my 4.5-year-old granddaughter. Her bedroom is, the window is at ground level. The cars are about 8 feet from her bedroom window, and the noise. And so I think it would have to be a 6-foot like cedar or nice wood fence that would block out the noise and the lights and the activity, which probably would also require me to put in a gate on either side of the house on my property, because of then blocking access for people being able to maybe break in the lower windows. But the trade-off is for the noise and the lights, that it needs to be a 6-foot like cedar wood fence, maybe like the neighbors put in on the other side of the parking lot.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Are there any other registrants?
Yes, one more registrant speaking, Jason George Hack of East Dayton Street, in opposition, and they'll be the last registrant.
Thank you.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Hi, this is Jason Hack, and I'm here with my wife, Amanda Birch. We own a single-family home directly to the west of the proposed parking lot. We're primarily concerned about the safety issues related to the lot. There have been numerous incidences of criminal activity that have directly affected us as well as our neighbors. First, burglars parked in the lot easily jumped our fence and broke the glass in a door. So we woke up while this was all taking place in the middle of the night, and the police came into our yard with guns drawn. Next, there was a period when criminals were using the lot to peddle drugs. These events were recorded by us and other neighbors. One evening, while we were playing in our yard with our then 5-year-old son, the drug task force for the city, which was conducting a stakeout, arrested 3 individuals, included a wanted felon. Third, there were periods where individuals would drive into the parking lot, set up lawn chairs, play music loudly, and drink. We understand that by living downtown, these types of things could happen. To maximize our safety, when we bought our house in 2018, we built a fence. However, when the lot was developed and crushed asphalt was laid down, they elevated the lot by 2 feet, making our 6-foot fence essentially useless for the purpose that was intended. The burglars I talked about earlier easily jumped the fence, and the night the drug dealers were arrested, one of the individuals stared angrily at me and my son. The developer pushed through the lot without taking into consideration the best interests of the neighborhood. The lot sits in between 2 owner-occupied single-family homes with elementary-aged children to the east and to the west, and a residential apartment complex to the north. We agree with the Tenny Lapham Neighborhood Association that a surface parking lot is not the highest or best use of the 1/5 of an acre in downtown Madison within a flood zone. While we oppose the conditional use permit, if it is granted, we ask that consideration be taken to maximize safety. First, we would ask the developer be required to build a proper screening fence on their property, including on our side of the property, taking into consideration the lot's final grade. Our 6-foot fence is not sufficient to provide screening from the lot. Next, we ask that the developer be required to limit access to the lot with the use of a gate or something similar, with a preference for keeping out illegal vehicles and also foot traffic. Finally, we ask that the lighting be kept to a minimum to avoid undue light pollution. Given the location of the lot next to 40 or so residential dwelling units, none of which will be utilizing and benefiting from this lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather, is that the last registrant? Yes, okay. Are there any questions for the registrants that have spoken? Yes, Commissioner Sondheim.
I have a question for the owner, so perhaps Maddie. I would imagine that you have security cameras for the apartment property. Do you plan to have any security cameras in this parking lot?
Yes, we actually have a camera that does face the parking lot. It's on our building and it faces out onto the parking lot, so we can monitor what's going on.
Okay, and it's sufficient to where you can see into the parking lot, even if there's a gate in front?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Yes, Alder Heck.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for Maddie Wall also. There was discussion about controlled access, and I believe in the staff report there's mention of controlled access with a fob being proposed. But would you be comfortable if we had a condition of approval that required controlled access to the lot, rather than just mentioning the fact that you're planning it?
Yeah, that would be fine with us.
Okay. I thought about this earlier, and I understand there's also another condition of approval that suggests traffic engineering would be concerned about any such access causing people to have to sit on the sidewalk in their vehicle as they're waiting for the gate to open, or if there should be a couple of cars trying to come in. So that's something that you'll have to work out with traffic engineering to how your controlled access system interacts with their concerns about the sidewalk. But I just thought I'd let you know that. Is it true that the only people that will be allowed to rent in this lot are Veritas Village residents?
Yes, that's correct.
And you'd be okay with adding that as a condition of approval, that only Veritas Village residents can rent in this lot?
Yes.
Okay, great. There's some issues, I think, related to the elevation of the lot. You heard about one of the neighbors being concerned about the elevation of the lot, and from the drawings and things, it's not really clear, but I'd like to maybe just hear your description, and maybe I'll have some staff questions about this later. But as you see the lot, will all of the runoff go to the corner where the bioretention, all the stormwater runoff would go to the corner where the bioretention feature is located, and there will no longer be runoff from the lot itself to adjacent properties?
Yes, so it's relatively flat, but it would slightly slope down towards that bioretention basin, and that's where all the water would be directed.
And it looks like there are curbs around the lot to keep the water in there, even if it is a little bit flat?
Yes.
Okay. I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Heck. Any other questions for any of the registrants? Seeing none. Alder Heck, do you have another question? Do you have another question, Alder Heck? No. Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions for city staff? Yes, Alder Rommel.
Thank you. You know, this probably would go forward, but what if it doesn't? What happens then with the parcel?
Is that question for
Mr. Tucker?
Mr.
Probably.
Tucker, okay. Yes, Mr. Tucker, or Matt.
Well, I suppose it's to be determined. I think the city feels like its position is, and we know the size of the parking facility the last time it was approved. I'm not sure how the courts might look at that, but it would be in the realm of the courts if this wasn't approved.
I'm sorry, you were kind of muddled.
This would be in the realm of the court system if this wasn't approved. And I mean, from what I heard from Attorney McLeod earlier was interest to continue to pursue what they believe is a right, and we continue to have a dispute.
So there's a building code compliance issue that's sort of driving this.
There's a zoning use compliance issue that's driving this. There was a memo that I prepared that was attached to the documents for this that covers the history, the record of history for the property in our files. And that is what we consider the approved condition of the property to be at this point in time, the permissible use of the property to be at this point in time.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Alder Heck.
Thank you. Along those same lines, maybe, you know, I think the neighbors and I know the neighborhood association have, you know, questioned as to whether this is the best use of this parcel. I kind of honestly struggle as to how that could be addressed using our standards of approval for conditional uses. But I do see some intersection with the comprehensive plan, perhaps. But I'm wondering, maybe Ms. Stouter can answer this. It's kind of subjective, I think, to say what the best use of the land is, but certainly this is in a residential zoning district, and a parking lot is not a permitted use, it's a conditional use. That means it's an allowable use, I guess. Are there aspects of the comprehensive plan related to, let's say, promoting, I mean, I guess there are two sides to this. If we approve it, we're sort of promoting the use of automobiles, when I think in the comprehensive plan we're talking about there are some goals about trying not to promote over parking and things like that, and use of automobiles. And yet there are also impacts if we do approve, if we were to turn this down, we'd be dumping 22 cars back out onto the street and making that aspect of some neighbors' lives miserable. So I'm kind of wondering how you see this in terms of planning documents. Do you really see a lot of relevance in terms of some of the things I'm talking about?
Great questions. I think, I mean, as you were talking, you mentioned a lot of things that are on my mind with this. You know, it's a small site. As you mentioned, parking lots are a conditional use in this residential zoning district. That doesn't mean that it's the highest and best use, which of course isn't one of our standards. I think if I were pressed, I think the highest and best use is probably a multifamily residential development on this property. However, you know, you mentioned the impacts of parking in the neighborhood. I think that's something that, you know, the city, we probably won't grapple completely with concerns from neighborhood residents regarding parking on streets. But that's one thing that this kind of parking lot would at least solve for the short term. My guess is that this parking lot, if approved this evening, won't be here forever. But, you know, as we continue to make transit improvements and other improvements that will help residents to find convenient choices aside from automobile use, perhaps the demand for parking will be reduced in this area. And that might tip the scales at some point toward development with a multifamily residential building on the property. But I think all in all, it's a relatively small property. It's not as if an entire block is being dedicated to parking for the foreseeable future. And so I think the Plan Commission just needs to weigh, the conditional use standards in this case and make sure we're focused on those.
Thanks. I know that wasn't an easy question. I'll yield to Commissioner Sundquist for now.
Commissioner Sundquist.
So without getting into the substance of what impacts might trigger the conditional use concern or not, which I think neighbors brought up some issues that staff didn't deal with in the report, and so maybe we can discuss that later. But more on the issue of like what this is going to be and how it comports with our planning goals long term. I know in some cases when we've allowed a parking lot by conditional use, we've placed a time limit on it. I think we've done that for the university once that I can recall, and I think we did it for the city itself and the Villager Mall. And I can't remember all the details, but would that, if we wanted to do that, would that be an appropriate and allowable condition for something like this?
There's certainly precedent for it. I think, one of the ones that I'm familiar with, I think when I started with the city, there was a case, St. Mary's back then had a lot, I think off of Fitch Hatchery Road, that had a temporary approval for 5 years, and it was renewed at least twice, 5 years and then 10 years later. And so I think sometimes it's difficult to come back and make a different decision X years later. I'd also turn to Matt. Matt, if you have any notes on kind of enforcement of that, please feel free to share them. But is it possible to add that condition? It is.
Matt, would you like to respond?
No, I would concur with Heather. There's only a very limited number of times we've applied such a condition to property. A surface parking lot is a lesser investment than a structure in a building that gets built. Those are kind of hard conditions to apply to uses that are built with significant improvements, but there is precedent for such conditions being put on parking facilities.
I know we applied one on the university, and in my tenure here, I know that. Commissioner Sundquist, you have a follow-up question?
That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Yes, Alder Heck.
Thank you. This is probably for Mr. Tucker. We did hear, and I have heard concerns about both stormwater drainage issues with the current lot, as well as the fact that it's graded substantially higher than some of the adjacent property. It would be good to know that the new lot had a lower elevation than the currently installed lot, so that some of those problems could be alleviated. Could you suggest maybe a condition of approval that would at least require review of the elevation to make sure, stormwater drainage, I assume, will be taken care of. It will function because it must, and engineering will look at that. But I'm mostly thinking about the large grade that was created between the existing lot and the adjacent properties. Can you suggest a condition of approval that might at least, since I don't know the numbers, I can't say it must be at this height, and there are no indications on the drawings as to what the elevations are. Do you have any idea of how that might be addressed? It's a little
Yeah, there's no question that material was brought in and to raise the elevation of the parking lot. It's gravel, it can't be striped. There's just no question about that. It's a non-compliant situation. And a condition could be applied to require the grades to match the surrounding properties, which would also mitigate the impacts of vehicles that are parked kind of higher up. However, city engineering can also assure that the site properly drains according to stormwater and grading and drainage. So that would be a condition to have the final elevation of the park facility match the surrounding property.
I did look at this actually today, and there is some variation from front to back as well as from side to side. So I assume there's some subjectivity in such a condition of approval. If you say matches, then there still will be some differences across the parcel, and that will not be a problem, I assume, if with such a condition. It will be open to interpretation a little bit, I assume.
I think it's relatively clear, and we're going to give it to the city engineering department, who's already made pretty extensive comments about how drainage works on this lot. And if the Plan Commission wanted to just say the parking lot shall be lowered to generally match the adjacent properties, I think we're getting at the gist of what you're trying to suggest here.
Okay, thanks. That's my question. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none. Do we have a motion? Yes, Alder Heck.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit, but with several added conditions of approval. I would first add the one that we just discussed about engineering assuring that the elevation of the lot is generally at the same level as adjacent properties. I'd add a condition that the fencing around the lot, this is partially addressed in one of the current conditions, but I'd like to make sure that the wooden fencing that's suggested in the current condition is required everywhere that there isn't wooden fencing on the adjacent properties, and that the metal fencing that's discussed in the staff report is only along East Dayton Street. So essentially, the entire lot must be enclosed other than on Dayton Street with a wooden fence, either by neighboring fences or Veritas Village's fencing. I'd like to add a condition that the parking lot be used only by Veritas Village residents. That might be it.
What about controlled access?
Oh, right. Thanks. Yes, that the lot have a controlled access system that also complies with traffic engineering's concerns related to backups.
Do we have a second? A second by Alder Lemer. Would you like to speak to your motion, Alder Heck?
I would, thank you. I really, in many ways, feel torn about this because the neighbors have very legitimate concerns about the fact that a parking lot was installed there almost overnight after an attempt to engage the neighborhood about what would be the best use when the neighborhood a year or two ago said we'd really prefer housing, as did the neighbors. This lot went in, and then it became the subject of this legal dispute about whether or not it was a existing non-conforming use or not. And but it's been there for a year and a half. It's had a fair number of problems associated with it, mostly because of its temporary nature. And it's I think that this proposal will correct the majority of the problems that the neighbors have had. There will be appropriate security. There'll be nobody else coming into the lot other than the people that park their cars there. I am kind of horrified in some ways to be supporting a new parking lot, because I really do think that sooner or later we have to stop making it easy to own cars, especially in the city center where is and going to be excellent mass transit. That said, I don't know how to address that in our standards of approval. I really think that this is what's proposed, and we don't have a lot of wiggle room in the standards of approval with regard to this. So that's why I made the motion to approve. Thanks.
Alder Limmer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Don't have much other than I agree with everything Alder Heck said, and I think the conditions that are put in place, both by planning staff requiring this 6-foot wooden fence, plus the conditions that Alder Heck added, are going to make the situation there better. So that is why I seconded this and will be supporting it.
Okay. Commission Member Sundquist.
So Alder Heck started to get at some of the negatives here, and I guess maybe they're all somewhat obvious. I do think the uses, values, enjoyment criterion can be invoked against this one. The neighbors gave a lot of reasons. Yes, the better fence and the fob and so forth address some of it, but not the traffic generation piece. I think as a general policy matter in the city, we've tended to look at surface parking in particular as a sort of obnoxious use. We give preference to structured parking over surface parking. So there's a just a tradition of not acknowledging that these are not great uses. So would you want to live next to a new surface parking lot? Probably not, even if there was a fence around it. So I do think that even with our current standards, practices, and boundaries around us with our ordinances, we can find that this is not appropriate. And so I was thinking of trying to add an amendment that would put a time limit on it, but as Heather says, that's a little bit of a fig leaf, because it would add some process. They would have to come back every however many years and reapply, but it would probably end up on the consent agenda, unless somebody, made if the neighbors came back and objected again, and if they knew about it, maybe it would be something. But in the past, those have been not terribly successful in changing behavior. So anyway, I'm not going to do that, and instead we'll vote against this motion.
Thank you. Any other commission members wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will, since I know that Eric will be voting against this, I'm going to be asking Heather to call the roll so that we can verify what the motion is. Heather, could you do that, please?
Yes. Alder Heck.
Aye.
Commissioner Solheim.
Aye.
Alder Rummel.
No.
Alder Lemmer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hagenow.
No.
Commissioner Sundquist.
No.
Okay, we have 3 ayes, so the motion does not pass, but the chair does have an opportunity to cast a vote.
But it wouldn't make any difference, would it?
Yes, it would. So right now it's 3 ayes, 3 noes, and the motion would need 4 ayes in order to pass. And so the chair can choose not to vote or choose to vote.
The chair votes aye.
Okay, the motion passes with the added conditions.
Moving on to the last item on our agenda. Item number 14, Legistar 64364, 2208 University Avenue, the 5th Older District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish an auto repair business, consideration of a conditional use in the TTS district for a mixed-use building with less than 75% non-residential ground floor facing the primary street. In addition, for consideration of a conditional use in the TTS district for a mixed-use building with less than 75% non-residential ground floor area, consideration of conditional use in TTS district for a mixed-use building with greater than 24 units, consideration of a conditional use in the TTS district for a mixed-use building exceeding 25,000 square feet in floor area, a building taller than 3 stories and 40 feet, to allow construction of a 6-story mixed-use building with approximately 750 square feet of commercial space and 79 apartments. Do we have a presentation? Colin? Yes.
Yes, thank you. So I will try to go through this very quickly as we're nearing the end. Before the commission now is the demolition permit for a vehicle repair garage and then construction of a 6-story mixed-use building. While quite a large building for quite a narrow site, staff does believe that the proposal is consistent with the recommendations of the adopted plans. The developer applicant does intend to explore options for public subsidy, which include a potential application for the City of Madison Affordable Housing Fund this summer, I believe. With the proposed condition, staff does believe that the standards of approval can be found met. And as always, I'll be able or be available to answer questions if you have them.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Heather, could you call the first registrant?
Yes, we have 2 registrants, both members of the development team. First is Jerry Borquin of Grand Teton Plaza, representing Dimension 4 Madison, to be followed by Mark Hammond.
You have 3 minutes.
Can I have Mark go first? Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Mark.
All right, well, hey, thanks everyone. I assume you can hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So yeah, tonight we'll be giving a brief informational presentation on our proposed redevelopment of 2208 University Avenue, which is currently Don the Car Care Man. So next slide, please, Colin. Yeah, so I'm Mark Hammond. I head up development for MSP Real Estate, and then so I'll speak briefly, and then Jerry Berkman with Dimension 4 Design Group will then speak after me. So yeah, MSP Real Estate, vertically integrated company. We do all of our own development, construction, management in-house. We also have a sister company, Heritage Senior Living. Next slide. So this would be our, not this project you're seeing, but the proposed project would be the 4th project we'll be undertaking in the city. In front of you here is the 2nd project that we undertook in Madison, and we opened up last year, and proud to have received an award for Best New Development for residential category by In Business. So here is the site, just to kind of get you acquainted. So you'll see the site is shown on that image in the left, and that kind of salmon or red color. So it's a narrow and a deep lot. It's bound to the north by Campus Drive, bound to the south by University Avenue. To the west is a BP and a 7-Eleven. And so just west that street you'll see is Walnut Street. And then just to the east of us is Mr. Car Wash. So in that building to the right, we're the tan building that have the kind of the 3 larger garage doors. As Colin mentioned, it's currently operated as a car repair shop. So yeah, kind of why here? So I mentioned this is a fourth project we have in the city of Madison. First was on the far west side. Second was on the east side. We have the Oscar Apartments under construction on the north side. And so, this area, this near west side in Madison, as you can tell from this image, is just an area where, despite all the success in garnering new additional affordable housing developments in the city over the last, say, 5 years, this is one area that it just has been underserved. A lot of barriers to entry, and so we're excited here to be hopefully putting a project together that can bring new affordable units to this neighborhood. And as Colin mentioned, we will be applying for city assistance this summer should the project continue to move forward. So just a quick overview before I hand it over to Jerry to just talk about the site and the building itself. So as Colin mentioned, it's one building. It's 3 stories up along University Avenue and with a step back to 6. That's consistent with the University Avenue corridor plan. 79 total apartments, a mix of 1, 2s, and 3s. About 80% will be affordable, meaning that there's an income restriction and a rent restriction, and then 20% will be market rate. We've incorporated a small play area for school-age children on the site. Despite being,
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up. Thank you for your comments. The next speaker.
Yes, just Jerry Borquin of Grand Teton Plaza.
Thank you.
And actually, Colin, maybe you just go to the next slide. So this is just a kind of conceptual site plan. There's more engineering drawings, but I wanted to highlight a couple things. One is along the right side of the property, or that'd be the east side, between the Mr. Car Wash and our building. There's an existing access drive and a joint easement along there. So to minimize the impact of cars and autos on the site, we're using that drive then actually to come into our property, as well as then get to the back of the property and enter the parking from the rear, which is hidden kind of down from a campus drive of that area. It also gave us the opportunity to then kind of open up the area at that corner as we come in off of University Avenue. So we do have a couple covered drop-off stalls right underneath the building there, as well as you'll see we've done some green area and plaza area and some benches and things to engage the street at the front. 2 things on the side. You'll see that it looks like we're close to the drive at Mr. Car Wash on one side, and then the parking lot of BP Gas on the other side. The grades work out that we are actually about 3 feet above the drive as it drops down by Mr. Car Wash, and on also the side on the other one where the BP Gas is. So between that 3 foot and then like a 4 to 5 foot fence along through there, we get the privacy that we want for our residents that area, but also enough that we can still let natural light come into those areas itself. Balconies and patios all focused toward the east and the west and out toward University Avenue on the south. We do have windows facing the north on Campus Drive, but for acoustics and other reasons, we haven't put any patios or anything hanging out in that direction. Colin, can you switch next one? So this is just a little blow up, just kind of give you a further idea of what's happening out along University Avenue and what the dimensions are. So you'll see the property line, which is just a little bit actually kind of back from the sidewalk. We're about 5 feet on the east side where our drive comes in to where our building overhangs on the top. The closest part of the building actually at the first level, or grade level, is about 8 feet 1 inches. And then we're like 14 feet by the time we get back to the west side on that. So that actually kind of opens up the building, protects it at that location. So it does say 5 in reality in the first floor there. That opens up underneath there. And we bring the walk in for the entrance to the commercial and the lobby area. We've also wanted to engage the streets. So we've done a lot of work on that front there. We've got a couple significant planters with landscape in there, a little concrete plaza with some seating area, as well as bike areas for visitors. Our first floor units are 3-bedroom townhouses. So we do have access on the first floor to exterior doors and those going down through the sides. So we are doing some engagement for the residents in that area to handle that. And I think there's one more slide, Colin. And this is the front elevation on the building. I just want to kind of show you that for reference more than anything else. As Mark mentioned, we've got 3 stories and then we step back before we get to our taller portion, which is 6 stories on that area. You'll see the courtyard toward the east, kind of let that natural light in on that, as well as the balconies off to the sides and then the balconies on the front engaging toward the street. Mix of materials, brick and concrete siding, very durable, very hard materials, similar to what we've done on some past projects in the city.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up. Thank you for your comments. Are there any other speakers?
No, that concludes our speakers for the evening.
Okay, thank you. Do the commission members have any questions for the registrants? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do the commission members have any questions for city staff? Seeing none, do we have a motion then? Yes, Commissioner Sondheim.
I will move that the Plan Commission find the standards are met and approve the demolition permit and conditional use for a 6-story mixed-use building and ground floor commercial space at 2208 University Avenue.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Sundquist, do you want to second it? Yes. Okay. Good deal. I'm going to assume. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Sondheim, would you like to speak to your motion?
Again, I will try to be as eloquent as you, Commissioner Cantrell. I just want to say this is, until recently, my neighborhood, I live very close to this site, and I'm very excited to see new affordable housing in that area in particular. I think it's an excellent redevelopment of that site, and look forward to seeing it move forward. I would add that I'm not totally attached to the top lot, which I think was brought up, but I understand that the applicant is looking at the affordable housing funds and maybe working with the community development staff on some of those features. So we'll let them figure that out.
Thank you. Commissioner Sundquist, do you have any other comments?
No, I agree with that. I'm glad to see the project and was a little bit holding my breath that there might be a lot of opposition to it, given some of the history along that corridor.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, there isn't. And maybe that's a good sign that we're kind of in sync about, what we want there. So I think it's a good project, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. I'll assume unanimous consent on the motion unless I see a raised hand. I see no raised hand, so the motion is approved unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is business by members. Do we have any business by members? Seeing no raised hands. Okay, Secretary's report.
Thank you, Chair Cantrell. Great job this evening. I wanted to first take a moment to thank Alder Rummel for her years of service on the Plan Commission. Alder Rummel, you've served on many different commissions that the Planning Division has staffed over the years, and just greatly appreciate your thoughtful contributions over the years. And we're sorry that this will be your final meeting as an alder on the Plan Commission, and just wanted to take a moment to thank you sincerely for all of your time.
I would like to comment on that too, if I could. I've served on the Plan Commission with Marcia for many, many years now. And you certainly are an outstanding member. And your passion for historic preservation and for affordable housing and housing in general has certainly made a difference in the city. And one only needs to drive down Williamson Street or East Washington Avenue to see how your leadership has really helped transform those areas of the city. And you and I always don't agree on things, but I certainly always appreciate your point of view. And I know that, like me, I'm sure that the other commission members are going to miss your tenure on this commission, and I'm sure that staff will too. And I know that you've served on many other committees and commissions on the city, and I hope you still keep engaged with the city. I'm sure you will. And again, I appreciate all your many, many years of public service. Thank you so much, Marcia.
Thanks. I just wanted to echo that and say I have been lucky enough to work with Marcia both as a developer and now as a commissioner. And I've greatly admired how she walks that delicate balance of working with developers to get the best project, but also advocating for her neighbors. And now that I'm in your neighborhood, Marcia, I think when I see you out there, I'm going to be picking your brain for questions because you always ask the best questions.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you again. I want to look forward to our upcoming meetings, but first of all, mention the March 30th council meeting and a few of the actions at that meeting. First of all, the council decided to refer the zoning code ordinance changes related to housing densities and conditional use thresholds to their May 18th council meeting. And as I did at the March 30th council meeting, I just wanted to thank again this plan commission for all of your work, really getting into the weeds, getting deep into these ordinance changes. Thank you for all of the time spent on them. Staff and those sponsoring the amendments will continue to work in the coming weeks to connect with incoming alders and address questions and try to provide as much information as we can as this works its way back toward the council on May 18th or whatever date it ends up getting back in front of the council. But thank you sincerely for all of your efforts on those changes. They're complex and we really appreciate all of your work. Second, the amendments related to slightly increased setbacks related to street trees did pass with very little discussion on the 30th. And then also the official map, revising the official map on the southeast side near Voges Road passed as well. And official mapping is becoming a tool that we think the Plan Commission will see more and more of in the coming few years. And so we'll keep fresh on official mapping. Looking up forward to the April 26th meeting, one thing that's not listed here on the list that we'll be bringing to you as staff is a look at a draft, a set of ideas regarding both official mapping and proactive rezoning for the Oscar Mayer Special Area Plan area. And it's been a complicated endeavor to get our thoughts together on it. And we really look forward to your input before we seek to introduce a set of zoning changes and official map reservations. Also, we'll have 9301 Crosswinds Lane. This is the construction of 32 units and 2 buildings as an amended plan development. And then I'll mention as well, 1901 Aberg Avenue is the conversion of the Wiggy's Tavern area into a common building for a community with 28 portable shelter units. And that's part of that is in place today on the north side. And we'll be bringing that to you as a planned development, again, similar to the community that's at 3rd Street. And then looking forward to the May 10th meeting, I'll just mention the first 2 items here. On West Wilson Street and South Henry Street, demolition, conditional use, and a CSM, certified survey map, for the demolition of 7 buildings and construction of a 10-story mixed-use building with 200 plus apartments. And then second on the list, the return of the rezoning proposal at 4205 Portage Road to traditional residential urban 1 for future multifamily development. And as Chair Cantrell tonight mentioned, we will have a special meeting on May 13th that will feature a guest appearance by our very own Eric Sundquist to talk about transportation demand management. So we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Please feel free to reach out to staff if you have any questions between meetings. Otherwise, thanks so much for all of your work tonight.
Great. Any announcements by commission members? Seeing no raised hands, do we have an adjournment motion? Any motion to adjourn? Motion made by Commissioner Sundquist and a second by Alder Lamer.
All those in favor? If I don't see any raised hands, I'm assuming unanimous consent. No raised hands. Motion carries. So see you. Bye-bye all.